Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Ask a Scientist Gaming, where we combine mediocre gameplay with expert science. I'm Ken Hansen, Associate Professor in the Department of Chemistry and Biochemistry. I'm a molecular photochemist slash photophysicist, which is a fancy way of saying I shine light on molecules and do useful stuff with it. But more importantly, joining me today is Dr. Brad Johnson. Brad, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself.
My name is Brad Johnson. I am an assistant professor in the Department of Geography at Florida State University. I am a meteorologist by training, have 2 degrees in meteorology, and my 3rd degree is in geography, but it was a concentration in atmospheric science. So we can get into it a little bit more about what my expertise is as we go along, but thank you for having me here today, Ken, and this looks like it's going to be a lot of fun.
Let's hope so. So what game are we starting with?
We are starting with Mortal Kombat 2.
All right, Mortal Kombat 2. Childhood favorite, the least favorite game of most of our parents.
Yeah, I'm looking at that. I'm like, 1994. Like, how did I convince my mom?
Did they know? They probably didn't know.
I don't think she knew because I had a Super Nintendo. I was a Super Nintendo guy, and I don't know if you remember this, but when Mortal Kombat came out on Genesis, it had all the gore. It had the blood, but Super Nintendo's version was wiped basically clean. It was a non-parental advisory version of it. So everyone was looking forward to when Mortal Kombat 2 finally released after playing the arcades and stuff like that. But
they brought back
I remember this game being so excited, me and my cousins about playing it. Yeah.
It was the forbidden fruit back in the day. It's like your friends could play it, but you couldn't.
Absolutely, man. It was awesome.
What are they on now? Have you played any of the modern ones? It's like Mortal Kombat 14 or something ridiculous.
They are, and I think they changed around the time where games like Tekken came out, and they really sort of incorporated the 3D sort of approach. So now you have this sort of just what most fighter games are like now.
Yeah. Stylistically, they've converged on. But this was the original. This was, well, maybe not the original fighting game, but this one really launched it.
Yeah. It was between this one and Street Fighter 2 for me. Yeah. Those were the ones that we normally played.
So have you seen both of the movies?
Wait, when you say both the movies,
okay, so there's the 2 old ones, right? The like 90s and the sequel, and then there's a modern one.
I've seen the 2 old ones, but I have not seen the new one yet, and I need to get on that.
See what game they're on. I just need to know this for my... So they are on Mortal Kombat 11, released in 2019. That's just the main series of games.
Wow.
Yeah. That's crazy. But it's coming back to you. You're feeling it?
I am. I'm starting to get into a little bit of a...
We should have done a prediction like, will Brad win his first fight in 25 years?
This guy. Right.
Oh, and Toasty?
Toasty. Yeah. What? Okay, so there's some type of movement in the arcade where you had to only use like the low kick button or something like that the entire round, and
there's all sorts of special secrets in this game which are amazing.
No, it was really so intricate, and looking at it now, it looks so rudimentary. Like, look at the dragon in the background, right? Like,
but at the time,
that is absolutely not Khaleesi's dragon.
We've come a long way. Yeah, no, the new ones have like the animations for the fatalities, and you watch people's spines, and like it's crazy.
Now let's see, do I remember this? Oh,
nice. GG's on that one. Well done, sir. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
Oh, all right. So you've settled in a bit. If anyone has questions, joining us today is Dr. Brad Johnson. He works at the boundary between geography and meteorology and does really fun stuff with land-atmosphere interactions and how that affects climate or local climates, urban climates. If you guys have any questions, throw them in chat. We'll be happy to answer them. But I'll start out with one. So young Brad Johnson was probably not like, I want to be talking meteorology and geography, playing video games on a Wednesday night. What path led you here? What series of
You know,
events led you to geography and meteorology?
That's interesting because young Brad didn't know what geography was outside of maps, first and foremost. And there's way more to it than that. But young Brad really was in love with the weather.
Oh, wow. It was a childhood passion.
Yeah,
That's
it
awesome.
was. And
You grew up in Florida?
I didn't. I grew up in Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Okay.
So that's part of the intrigue in it all for me, is that I became really interested in the weather after it snowed once at home, and it had never done that.
Yeah.
Well, I remember
causing
being in
that?
first grade and the secretary coming over the intercom and just saying, "Hey, attention everyone, it's snowing outside." You know, you go outside and do the stereotypical things that you saw on TV or whatever. You catch the snowflakes in your mouth, and we got about maybe 3 inches of snow, and it was all melted the next day.
But enough to make snowballs, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, and it was great, man. It was great. I remember I had some cowboy boots. I put those on. We went outside, and I also remember the next day started asking those questions like, "Well, why is this happening?" And ever since then, it just kind of continued, the snowball.
That's awesome. You have like a pinpointed event that just triggered it.
Yeah, man. I don't take it for granted at all.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people take a long time to find something they truly love. And the weather, I think that was around the same time maybe the Weather Channel really had started to proliferate around different communities and became sort of commonplace.
Yeah.
So that was my teacher. Just watching.
And the Weather Channel, like, it was legit. It's lost its way a little bit with some of those shows, but back in the day,
it's a lot more media centric. Like a lot of things have to be, because you have to keep people's attention.
But like, it was actual weather stories and meteorologists and news. Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah.
Don't kill me, Jax. Oh no. That's always the one that gets you when they block and they die.
Yeah. And so undergrad, you're like, this is what I'm going to do.
That's right. That's right. I found an opportunity in the state of Louisiana, and at the time did not have any dedicated meteorology program. So I found myself in Iowa, which was a very interesting cultural experience for me because I had never been anywhere like that before. I can imagine the same for people going the other direction. But once I got there, I really started to find more and more people who like mine and were interested in the same things, and started to learn more about the nuances of the science. And I'll read it. They made him so much better in this game than the first one.
OpenSet, welcome back. It's good to have you. You guys haven't checked out OpenSet's stream? I remember he's a mathematician. Is that? I think that was your expertise. But yeah, you guys should check out OpenSet. Regular streamer in science and technology and knowledge fellowship. So yeah, welcome back, OpenSet. If you have questions for Brad Johnson, let's talk climate. Anyway, sorry I interrupted. So undergrad, you took your meteorology, you got your PhD in meteorology, and then you went to geography.
So yeah, I got my undergraduate in meteorology, my master's in meteorology, actually at Florida State as well. And then I returned to meteorology through the venue of geography. I actually told myself I didn't want to have a third degree in meteorology because I was really focused on learning new skill sets and new perspectives to answer different questions. So that's why I chose geography, and I had a great mentor who helped me to understand what I could learn from it. And to be honest with you, here I am. I'm a geography professor. I really did not have a true idea of what geography really was before I started my PhD program. Now, I know that sounds absolutely crazy, but there's so much breadth to the field.
I mean, like, the undergrad lens looking at geography is like memorizing locations and stuff, and it's disingenuous. So if you had to explain to a general audience, like, to dispel that myth.
Yeah, so I think the best way to sort of describe it would be geography is a study of any sort of phenomena in regards to space. So think about anything you can sort of imagine, in a sense, and it changes depending on where you are. You can study that in geography. So that can go, it makes sense, of course, with atmospheric science, with climate and weather and things of that nature, but you can also think about things as far as when it comes to cultural sort of changes. So there's a entire human geography branch that studies how a variety of things, whether it's food security or how laws change from place to place and over time, even mountain geography, like how different communities live within different mountain ranges and how the geography impacts their way of life or the decisions or the politics that are going in those areas. So there's a lot that geography has to offer in just those two pillars. And honestly, geography has these three pillars. So there's the human, the physical, and the technical side. And those three combined really sort of not only, you can understand how the field is so broad in that sense right now. You can have individuals who are really sort of into social justice issues. You can have individuals who are really only interested in remote sensing and how to better understand how phenomena are actually manifested here on Earth. But one thing that is key for geography, it has to be involving the actual Earth. So we do not actually leave the planet Earth at all. It's definitely focused on that one sort of, and I say that one, it sounds that way, but with the new James Webb's telescope, it sort of changes our perspective a little bit. But yeah.
Yeah, no, that's intriguing. So your department's probably pretty diverse then. I haven't looked into geography much, but so you're meteorology plus geography. There's probably sociology. There's, all sorts of disciplines.
That's right.
Multi-degrees.
We have ecologists. We have GI science technicians. People who are into even animal science. Marine biology might be an area as well that people are interested in. Health, GIS. So there's a variety of ways that you can become involved in this field. And I think that's honestly one of the attractive things about the field is if you have something to desire and you're interested in it, you can find out where in geography that fits, because everything changes with space and everything happens somewhere.
Yeah. So it's all, as long as it falls under the category of positional relationships somewhere on Earth, it falls under geography. And
yeah.
That's pretty amazing. I want to point out to the audience, anyone that hasn't played Mortal Kombat before, Brad is pulling off all these different special moves that he remembers from his childhood. It's pretty amazing. So Mortal Kombat, you only had, 4 buttons plus the arrows. And so it's like combinations of forward B and forward A and all sorts of stuff. But they were special. They were different for each character, right?
And one thing that's special and is consistent throughout this is Raiden is really handing it to me right now. And I remember that as well. It didn't matter where you came upon him in that mountain, he was going to knock you out.
Yeah. No worries. We are mediocre gameplay. It's okay. No pressure tonight. But OpenSet says, I totally misread the title as geology.
Happens more than you think, but it also probably surprised you to know that I've never taken a geology class in my life.
Fair. I guess
Have I forgotten to throw the spear? I think so.
You want me to look it up?
Sure. Oh, remember that. Okay. I was just
back low punch.
Low punch.
Yeah. Oh, you got it. So that's interesting. So David Collins is an astronomer, so he gets mistaken for an astrologer occasionally on airplanes. Is there an equivalent for you, geographer? I guess people know who meteorologists are. That one's not pretty distinct.
They know who meteorologists are, but they always think that we're on TV. So most people don't have a concept of what a research meteorologist does.
Mm-hmm.
So that's usually what I have to, accommodate for in those conversations. In reality, I think about only maybe 10 to 15% of all meteorologists are broadcast meteorologists.
I'm surprised it's even that high, because there aren't a lot of those positions, right?
That's right. Raiden knocked me all the way off the mountain.
Oh, it didn't let you continue?
Oh, no, I ran through all the credits.
Okay.
Couldn't put enough quarters in the machine, I guess.
I thought I had infinite continues, but so it goes. So OpenSet's a mathematician. Phenomena in regard to space sounds like what I studied, topology. Yeah, topology is a fun area. We get in that a little bit in chemistry and physics, but topology and topography confusion all the time. That's fair.
I can see that. What's funny is that we actually have to deal with both of them in a way. Particularly when it comes to GIS and how we describe certain parameters within the system. Topology becomes an important concept that we have to deal with as well. Topography makes sense. Everybody understands that. How high is the mountain?
Yeah.
But Yeah.
I mean, so that's interesting. Your data sets, you do a lot of climate land interaction. So you need the topography, and that coincides with the meteorology. Like what data do you use?
So good question. So most of my data that I use on the climate side is gridded data sets. So they're produced more than likely by the government or some other open source, because there's always so much of the data. So think model data, or maybe what we like to call reanalysis data. So we have these large data sets where it's very difficult to put into.
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, he pulled the dragon fatality. Look at that. That's impressive. Well done. You're our first fatalities on stream. We only played Mortal Kombat 1 had fatalities.
You can tell how much time I burned in my childhood. I could have been a Nobel laureate by now if it weren't for Mortal Kombat 2.
Embedded in your soul. No, all the research is saying this was good for you. Within a reasonable amount of gameplay. It's better for you than movies, than like YouTube, than TikTok. This is, because it is active, like it's learning, right? It's response time, it's analysis.
I attribute my driving capabilities,
no joke,
to my ability to playing video games so much in my childhood because of the hand-eye interaction. Now, my wife may or may not disagree, but I haven't proved her wrong yet. But.
No, my wife has, well, she agrees with me on this actually, so we're in the different scenario, but I see things before she does. And like your periphery, if you grew up on first-person shooters, like watching that radar, watching the sides of the screen, like you had to pay attention to a lot of stuff. Trained us for driving.
I can see that.
Reptile.
I'm okay with it.
Yeah, we had Walter Bouton. He's from, I think he's sociology, but he does like elderly and using games to like teach people. And it's one of those things like if you're doing an action similar to the task you're doing, it's good to do gaming, and it actually trains you. That's why like surgeons that play those, fold origami, like it's a game, but it's you're practicing the actual skill set. And so he does actual simulators for like elderly and driving in cars. How do you train them to react to things and stuff like that? So
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, it's a really fun area of research. He makes elderly play video games, which is going to be awesome.
I hope my kids make me play video games. Elderly, that'd be great.
I mean, it's going to look very different in like 30 years, right? It's going to be
very
homes.
meta.
Yeah. Still nursing homes full of just like NES emulators and.
I don't know if you ever read the book 1984.
Yes.
But they describe in that movie how they had these walls in their home and all the walls were sort of virtual.
Yeah.
And I guess it sounds a lot like what our meta is probably going to eventually be.
Yeah.
But yeah, it reminds me a lot of what that might be. Who knows? At this point, though, we thought we were going to be flying around like the Jetsons.
I'm looking forward to submersive games because like our bodies are going to get bad, but like we can still, pretend we're walking on a mountainside or whatever. We can do that through ride the roller coaster. Jax.
I played a little bit with him too. I just never could consistently be as good with him as with other people.
Yeah, he didn't have any projectiles, did he?
The little pink, like it reminded me of the sonic boom that Guile had.
Okay.
There it is.
Oh, there it is. Okay. Bad blade. The blood looks so realistic.
I used to be able to do that combo.
And I'm impressed. So have you been to Railroad Square? They have there's like an arcade in there. So it's Railroad Square Park, and it's an arcade where you can basically play by the hour. I think they have a version of Mortal Kombat in there. I don't know. I don't know if it's 2. I don't remember what it is.
I have not been down there yet.
Yeah, but it's not. It has a bunch of pinball machines, and it has like Cuphead, the arcade game, which is pretty cool. But yeah, worth the trip because it's all retro games.
Oh, Raiden.
Again, we meet again, Raiden.
I didn't mean all the things I said last time, Raiden. It's faster than you all the time.
I'm stressed
Jump
now.
back. You
built
jump
up
back
so
and-
much. All right. Equally important, we haven't answered this question. What are we drinking tonight?
We are drinking Red Stripe. It is Nightbot. Who's Nightbot?
That's me.
Okay.
I have
Okay,
command
great.
list, so I can put those
Perfect.
in. But yeah,
I didn't do my homework. I'm sorry. So,
no worries.
but yeah, we're drinking Red Stripe. Is one of the drinks that whenever I'm out grilling or smoking,
Yeah.
some meat, and it's a light, kind of cool, refreshing sort of a drink, not too heavy, and
Yeah, it's nice for Florida humidity. Like it's not, you don't have to chew your beer down. It's just
that's
nice
right, and it
chill.
actually has a decent amount of flavor to it too,
Yeah.
compared to sweetness. That's from
Jamaica. It's 4.7% alcohol, if anyone is curious. Man, kids are melting.
Let's see, what did Melina actually have?
You're looking them up, okay?
I'm looking
I've let you
for
down.
lightning in a bottle.
Yeah. It's whatever's going to take down Raiden. I didn't actually look into the meta of this. Is there favorable combinations? Presumably there are.
For people that you will actually play against, like who would work better against? I don't know.
Because I like Smash Brothers. There's definitely a strategy like that.
And I remember his tell is that every time you jump backwards, he throws a lightning bolt at you, and there's no way to get away from it. See? There we go.
I don't even know what keywords to search to find. I did MK2 favorable pairings.
We're just gonna. Yep.
AK accomplished. I'm waiting for Brad to yell finish him.
Oh,
Man,
is he actually gonna blow me? He is.
you got finished. No, you missed it earlier. Brad pulled out the dragon finishing move out of
I'll take care of one for you. That's my beautiful wife.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, welcome to the stream. Accomplished.
Accomplished, yeah.
Accomplished. That's nice. I like it.
And she's also a professor at FSU.
Did she play video games?
She does not. There's only one person that she will play video games for, and that's our beautiful 7-year-old.
Yeah, that's fair.
Who has convinced her to start playing Fall Guys, and it's great to watch. I love it.
You can do Fall Guys on stream. Your daughter says she loves you.
I love her too.
That's awesome. So she's
I
seen
promise you, I was doing better before you guys came on. It's not you though. I was also losing.
it's hard. Like once you get on stream and start talking, like I'm always impressed on Twitch. The best players in the world, they'll talk and watch chat and do it all at once. It's incredible.
Yeah, they stop talking when there's money involved though.
Rightfully so. But yeah, if you guys have any questions, throw them in chat. Guest today is Dr. Brad Johnson, expert in meteorology, geography, land climate interactions, urban climate, which is, let's dive into that. Urban climate, what is that?
So urban climate is a field that's encompassing of all the ways that the human interactions and land changing and the process of changing lands from rural to urban change the actual. Oh, there we go.
Oh,
Finish him!
there it is. Accomplished. There you go. That was beautiful. Well done, sir.
Thank you. So
This one had the babalities too and the friendships, right?
yeah, that's where you had to like only use low kick or something or hold one button the entire
Yeah.
time. That was hard stuff, man.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, it's okay. But urban climate. So if you think about when we change land surfaces to cities, or more particularly, we think about concrete, or we think about buildings, or we just change it from the natural land cover. You change then the actual energy balance. And that energy balance effectively alters the local climate, whether it be the urban heat island, which a lot of people are familiar with. They've heard that term before. But there are also a variety of other ways that the urban environment changes that reason. It's really difficult to talk like, and, like, you know,
No,
also,
you're killing it though. Well done,
oh man. But
it's part of the fun. One of the reasons I like doing this is it humanizes scientists. Like, I don't care how smart you are, you're getting fucked up.
Absolutely.
Mortal Kombat.
So yeah, when you change not only the land surface, you change the way water is absorbed in soil, you change the way precipitation patterns occur. And actually, one of the ways that no one actually debates, there's been debate in the past. I don't remember her. But there's been very little debate on. There's a lot of debate in the past about what the impacts of climate change are, whether or not it's going to cause this or whether or not it's going to cause that. But urban climate has been the one way that there's been very little debate, and that human beings have the actual power to change the actual surface of the earth and impact the environment. As a matter of fact, the first time it was truly observed was in London, back when London was the largest city in the world, with around 1 million inhabitants. And they noticed that the temperatures were warmer in the city than they were in the rural areas. So that was the first time they saw that there was an urban heat island. It wasn't termed that, it wasn't coined that at the time, but it was the first time they noticed. Since then, we've been able to sort of better understand what some of the dynamics are, and we're continuing to like sort of figure out how that works. And the whole point of it is, it's not just to know what's going on, but how do we better build our cities to make them more resilient, to prepare them for what the futures in large-scale global climate will be like, and how we can actually use that information to provide to city planners and to engineers, so then they can take our model output, our observations and understanding in theory, and apply them to their model and their understanding in theory, and also in the practice as well. So that way that when we're building our future cities, we can avoid a lot of the mistakes that we've made in the past. Not only in regards to how we've actually changed the environment, but in the number of people that we've disenfranchised along the way. And I think that's an incredibly important part of our work, in an area that I'm really focused on doing as well, sort of developing these collaborations and leveraging the expertise of individuals who are great at what they do, so we can figure out how to make actual answers to some of the real questions that we have to deal with moving forward.
I mean, so it's an interesting like thermodynamics calorimetry problem, because you're energy balancing and heat retention and reflection, and
that's right.
So you have to do like materials analysis too, right? Because it changes with the city has a lot of windows versus cement, and it's all variables.
The urban morphology is what how we talk about, even how the city is, how it's built. How is it built in comparison to the actual environment that's around it? Is the city constructed so that the streets are parallel or perpendicular to surrounding water sources? Or is the urban core pretty tight and dense, like say a New York City? Or is it more, or is the urbanization more sprawling, like say a Houston or Atlanta? And those have different sort of ramifications for the type of impact the urbanization of the city will have on that environment.
I mean, so that seems daunting, like in terms of the number of variables you have to deal with. Is that, like, you have to make approximations, you have to make a lot of assumptions. Like,
That's right.
That's what you spend a lot of your time wrestling with. Like, how do we model this complex problem?
So that's exactly our problem. One of the issues is that we can't observe everywhere within a city. We can't observe every city block, and even if we could, we don't have the compute power, even with the approach of exascale computing, to be able to resolve all of that information within the scale of a model. So there's a lot of what we call parameterizations within models, where we make assumptions based on certain scenarios, even times of the years, or certain background atmospheric conditions, and what we would expect it to be with and without the urban environment. One of the areas that I sort of work in right now is looking at using our weather research and forecasting model to look at cities and how they impact those changes. So if we remove the forested area, or remove the cropland, and we replace it with sparse urban or dense urbanization, what are the resulting sort of heat exchanges? What are the impacts on water runoff after strong storms? And the area that I'm really focused on is looking at how cities actually cause precipitation and change the local hydrology in a region. And that's the thing that we find is very evident in the data. And now we're trying to leverage other sort of, I don't remember how to knock them to the pit. I only remember what Sub-Zero. It's different for everyone. That was the thing that was so difficult about this game.
Yeah. Like you memorized one or two people, and that's all.
Yeah, there's only so much I can stuff in there. But yeah, so we take all that information and we model it by grid points, and we sort of try to understand, well, what would it look like if the city were there? What would it look like if the city were not there? And then we can make sort of assumptions based on that and what we see in reality from the limited data we do have, and determine if the models are giving us something that's realistic, and then move forward from that. So it's very bitwise, and an area that that's very important that you can imagine in urban environment is aerosols. And I know that's one area in chemistry that's pretty highly researched field, but it's an area that it's very difficult for us to get a handle on because aerosols have multiple different types of effects. They can act to scatter light, they can act to reflect energy, or they can act to absorb energy. They even play a critical role in rainfall. As a matter of fact, we wouldn't even have any rainfall if it were not for aerosols, because we couldn't develop clouds naturally without some sort of seed for the cloud droplets.
Yeah. So earlier you said cities encourage rainfall. Is it nucleation or is it a wind? Like, well, how is that? What is it doing?
So there are a variety of different ways it can do it. And one of the easiest ways that I can sort of explain. That I can sort of every time you jump in, it chops you up. One of the most simple ways that I can explain, if we think about it, and we're familiar with here in the state of Florida, even if you live near the coast, particularly in a warmer environment, it's the sea breeze circulation. If you're spending any time at the beach, wherever you are, you note that in the morning time, the winds are usually pretty light, but around noon or 11 o'clock, the winds begin to blow in off the ocean, and that's because the ocean is cooler than the actual land during the middle of the day. So that creates a pressure difference. And that pressure difference is what causes the actual wind to blow. Well, in an urban environment, because cities are warmer than the surrounding rural areas, you end up with warmer bubbles of air over urban areas, causing the cooler air from rural areas to sort of move in a sea breeze circulation type of manner. And the warm air only has one direction to go. That's up, and that's where you get convection or thunderstorms.
I see.
And so you find that in certain different places. You find it over the urban core, obviously, because that's where the most warming happens. But you also find it near the urban-rural sort of interface, that fringe in the suburban areas. And one of the places that's renowned for this is northeast of Atlanta and called Norcross, Georgia, what we call the Norcross anomaly, where they have by far and away the largest concentration of lightning strikes in the Atlanta metro area, and it's because they're located downwind of the Atlanta metro area. So it's pretty intriguing and fascinating. There's so much we don't know about it yet. Mainly because
it's hard. It's a complex problem.
Yeah, that's right. And there's so many things you have to hold constant that you really would not like to, but you have to sort of understand them piecemeal at a time in order to get to sort of manageable solutions that reviewer number 2 will accept.
Yeah. Well, the hard part, I mean, compared to what I do, you don't get to do the experiment, right? You don't get to build a city in a location and see before and after, right? You just have to assume these variables are close enough, and reviewer 2 is always there.
That's right, and you have to work with the data that's out there. And like I mentioned, there's point data, airports and things of that nature. Okay, but there's things like that. But when you don't have the points in between, it's hard to verify and it's harder to know. But not only do we want the data at the surface, we need the data above the surface too. So we have to depend on a variety of sources, weather balloons, even airplanes, get data from them. So it's really interesting just how you have to work with what you have. But as we move forward, we're hoping that we can get some sort of experiments that allow us to test these a little more. There have been ones in the past, but not really too many that have been large scale. And a lot of them have been experiments of opportunity. Like we see the data is there and now we want to do something, but we haven't had the opportunity to truly design experiments. There's Jade in the background poking from behind the tree.
I mean, so like the uptick in heat waves and things like that, is that useful new knowledge, or is that just screwing with all the previous models because it's anomalously increasing? Well, I don't know if anomalously, we knew it was happening, but Oh,
I don't remember how to do that.
no worries.
I think it's like back down.
No worries. And we can change games at any time if you want. It's totally up to you.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna do this until I probably run into Raiden again, and I don't think let him out. But yeah, so we don't have that many experiments. Matter of fact, some of the first urban climate experiments were done back in the 70s. In this big project around St. Louis called Metromex. And it was really focused on not only precipitation, but also winter precip, which is an area I have done research in as well, looking at how big cities impact winter precipitation. So it's a pretty intriguing. There's a lot to actually. So if you're out there and you're interested in this type of work, there's a big space here for you. And if you can understand the sort of ramifications and implications of understanding this and fixing these problems, then we need your help.
I mean, those are two different battles, right? Understanding and then getting someone to do something about it.
Oh, yeah.
Climate change and whatnot, ozone holes. It takes a lot to get society to change.
I don't know if we'll actually get to the fatality with him, but what's the grenade? It's either back, down, forward, or back, down, forward.
I can look it up. Why can I not remember his name?
I'm in here. I
You good?
Yeah.
Sub-Zero.
She's definitely gonna beat me down.
No, we're gonna be
planning out fatality. She's definitely-
Oof. Oof. Oh, got him. Oh, no. That was
Hit
beautiful.
the wrong button.
Oh.
Yeah, but
I mean, so my wife and I recently celebrated our 40th birthday, and we went to New York City just to see plays and dinners and whatnot. I left the kids with their grandma. But Central Park is an anomaly in a major city like that.
yes.
Is that studied? Is that, I mean, psychologically it's good for society. It's also good for it in terms of thermodynamics, presumably, and air quality and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, so you've seen a huge move in recent 15 years for cities moving toward sort of this green infrastructure and really trying to work that out. Mm-hmm. And Central Park, I guess, is probably one of the places that's been long standing. They've been that way, but those places are absolutely vital. Yeah. Any city that's being properly designed right now has to incorporate green spaces, and you see a lot of efforts for reforestation within urban environments. As a matter of fact, if you look at actual total forest counts throughout the contiguous United States, forest land cover is decreasing in general. It is actually increasing in counties with high urbanization.
Interesting.
So there are two places where it's increasing. Well, one place where it's increasing, places that are already urbanized. But on the opposite side of the coin, it's decreasing in suburban areas where development is high. So we have to figure out a way to sustainably sort of work through all of that to minimize those impacts. Because at the end of the day, when we see these things like heat waves, which happen in Europe, and we see that the baseline is getting higher and higher, and the likelihood for these high impact heat events is it's glitched a little bit for a second. Is increasing. Mm-hmm. So in a lot of these cities, as we know, particularly in places that are further north, do not have the infrastructure to deal with extreme heat. Mm-hmm. So if we're going to be designing these cities and we have to be accounting for where people are going to be moving to avoid these sort of climate impacts, we need to understand what the impacts are and how these cities are going to respond to the increased activity, not only as far as the people, but also the industries that are going to settle themselves there or find more suitable. Because think about the things that change and how fast they change, right? Mm-hmm. The Midwestern United States is really known as sort of the Rust Belt now because it was a really factory-centric sort of economy, and a lot of that has really gone away now, but you end up with these sort of infrastructure that are relics of that time period, and we can already see how it's never going to be the exact same there as it was before. Mm-hmm. So if we're going to be able to try to anticipate some of those things, within reason, right? Because how do you anticipate human behavior? but at least understand if things were to happen in a certain way, if there were certain scenarios, how would it play out, and what would the urban response be?
I mean, there's an interesting. I mean, you're combating capitalism when you say I want to put a forest in the middle of the city, right? It's like short-term profit says sell Central Park, build a bunch of buildings, but there's a long-term both like quality of life as well as financial cost, right? Like you said, heat waves. But trying to convince people of that is non-trivial.
That's right. And now you're sort of talking in general about, one of my former bosses when I was a contractor for NOAA, he always talked about people aren't going to do anything unless you give them the value proposition. Why does it work for me? What's the benefit of me changing anything, whether or not outside of it's the right thing to do? And being able to help them understand how they can build profitable businesses and build lifestyles and do things that are sustainable, I think are critical. And that goes beyond just researching and understanding what the actual phenomena are doing. That goes to communication,
psychology and sociology.
Oh man, so many. Yeah. So you can imagine you need economists and psychologists, like you said. So many different players have to be involved. It's going to really come down to it. Katana, don't kill me at the end.
Nice. Now, I've seen several proposals like doing solar cell research, but they start to incorporate things like, economists in there or sociologists in there and say, here's how we're going to reach the public. Here's how we're going to do a cost benefit analysis. Like somebody has to do the math, and you should have that incorporated into the research. Like it should be an integrated effort. So I'm glad to see, cross-disciplinary.
Yeah, that's right. And honestly, for a long time, meteorologists tried to do it all. And I don't know why. Maybe because a lot of really smart people, but there was a sort of a solo type of approach. Like I should be able to do everything. I should be able to code. I should be able to analyze. I should also be able to do the actual experiments, and I should be able to communicate to the public what my experiments mean for them, so they can then make the adjustments that they need to make. Like that's when you think about the different levels to that. There's no way that one individual could have the expertise to be able to do that effectively without spending 30 years to become an expert at all of them. Right? You can really fast track a lot of that. And to our credit, we've been a lot better in recent years. Man, he came out motivated this time.
That's a good way to describe it. Motivated.
Don't knock me in there.
He did it in the drink.
Short tournament for me. Yeah, I think I have probably one more coin in there, and we can transition. That's fine. It's for a minute, but and I think I've put all the tricks that are in my bag are now out, so I have nothing else.
That's good. A big spooky skeleton has redeemed. Take a drink. Spooky, thank you for joining us as always. Cheers, everyone. Hopefully you're drinking with us on a Wednesday night, watching Brad play Mortal Kombat 2 for the first time in 25 years while talking about geography, meteorology, urban climate. I mean, you work in an area that's relevant to everyone, whether they know it or not.
I always say that weather is very relevant to everybody. No one cares about it until it impacts their lives.
Yeah.
We here in Florida, you know how that works.
Yeah.
Every fall around this time, there's a threat of some sort, and everyone wants you to tell them exactly what's going to happen in their front yard. But even more specifically to urban climate, a lot of people don't even know that this field exists, and I guess the urban heat island is really just starting to come in. The media really over the last few years have started to gather a little bit more intelligence about the topic, so they want to know more about it.
Mm-hmm. Man, we're 45 minutes in. We should do a prediction. I'm going to do this one because you alluded to it in one of yours. We'll see who was paying attention. So we're going to throw a prediction up there right now. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have your internet points ready, we're going to throw up a science question. For those of you not familiar, Twitch allows us to do predictions, which is basically we can ask questions to the audience, and you can gamble your imaginary internet points, which we call standard internet units on our channel. They are useless outside this channel, but fun to gamble. You can bet as much as you want, depending on how confident you are in your answer. If you're not following, click the follow button at the bottom of your screen there. It'll give you 300 points, and you can gamble accordingly. But the question is, area of cities most rainy during the summer. Is it downwind or downtown? So downwind of the city or downtown? Is there anything you need to add without giving away the answer?
I think we can go with that for now.
So downwind of the city or downtown in the city. Which one is more rainy? And this is a pretty universal phenomenon then?
Pretty universal, but you find it to be more pronounced in cities that are in humid, warmer climates. So think cities like Houston, Atlanta. In the larger the city, of course, the larger the impact. But we're starting to learn more about places like Charlotte, Raleigh, Durham.
Note you are all on Ask a Scientist Gaming honor code. You can't look up the answer, although I don't know where you'd find this answer, but just throw your guesses in there, make your prediction. Areas of cities most rainy during the summer. Is it downwind or is it downtown? Put your guesses in there now. It's one of those things we never just casually think about. You know?
No, absolutely not. But I don't know if anyone's ever been to Atlanta or is driven in Atlanta. Interstate 85 is one of the main thoroughfares, and it runs northeast out of the city. It runs northeast out of the city into Gwinnett County, and Gwinnett County is 1 million residents in Gwinnett. And Atlanta's a really commuter city. It shrinks down, and the population grows by about 1.5 million every weekday. Mm-hmm. But there's no mass transit, so everyone has to basically get on these large interstates and fight traffic.
Wait, before you give away the answer, last 20 seconds, throw your predictions in there now. Downwind, downtown, which area gets the most rain during the summer? And this is an urban climate question. This is an exam question in your class, presumably, right?
It is.
That's awesome.
Actually, I don't have exams in urban climate class. It's more of a graduate level upper, so it's really more research based, but we have a lot of fun with it. It's actually...
All right, Brad, what is the answer? Downwind or downtown?
It is downwind.
Downwind.
So I mentioned I-85, 85 north out of Atlanta. Let's see, let me focus for a second.
Spooky, congratulations on your 2.6 to 1 payout on downwind. So it's more likely to rain downwind than it is downtown.
That's right. Because even if the heat is most intense downtown, the prevailing winds will push that heat once it gets above the actual surface. It'll push it to the suburbs or downwind of the city. So you end up finding out on aggregate, you get more rainfall downwind of the city. Now, downtown is a secondary maximum, but not to the extent.
So this may be a stupid question, but does it matter? So there's a general directionality of the wind. Does it matter if the streets align with that wind, or if it's like tilted? Does that screw up airflow?
So we're talking about ventilation.
Yeah.
So there's this concept, and it's interesting the things that we learn in history that we pay no attention to as we go forward. And they end up biting us.
Do repeat it, yes.
So most European cities are designed with natural ventilation because they're older cities, and they didn't have that type of infrastructure in order to be able to cool down artificially.
So empirically, they just did it.
They did. So they have the streets would line up with, say, like Barcelona. The streets aren't situated north-south on grids like they are in most parts in America.
Wow.
They're located. They're perpendicular to the actual coastline to allow the sea breeze to naturally cool the area. So in America, we did not do that.
No. We built
everything's on a north-south grid, right? So there's no natural ventilation. And so for the most part, unless you get lucky in that north-south grid and the coastline happens to be north-south or east-west, you might get natural ventilation, but in most scenarios, that is not the case.
Wow, that is amazing. That is a fun factoid. I appreciate that.
Yeah, so I think that it's pretty interesting how it works, because people don't normally think of how does that impact me? Okay, it rains more in a place like that. Well, imagine if you're on I-85 North and you're in rush hour. The heat of the day is around 3 or 4 o'clock. So that means that the most heat will rise and then move downwind around 4 or 5 o'clock. Well, that means you're in the middle of rush hour on I-85 North, which is about 6 lanes wide at most places. So then you're in the place that has the highest likelihood of having a thunderstorm, and you're going to have to fight through it in your rush hour. every other day.
American
in the
cities were built at the absolute worst time because they were built revolving around vehicles and not like Europeans. They have walkable
Yes,
cities, right?
yes.
They don't have terrible designs like we do. It's just, yeah.
And it's so persistent.
Yeah.
It's very hard to go away from that.
Yeah.
In the South, for a variety of reasons, we don't have mass transit, for a lot of misplaced fears and things like that, but also because, like what you said, the interstate highway system was designed post World War II, where vehicles were already in place. Most of the cities in the northeastern United States, their transit systems had their origins prior to that.
Yeah.
So they at least had that to sort of work in their favor, despite the sprawl that's still now taking over their areas.
Yeah. Well, and it allows us to drive bigger cars, and we're just,
Yeah.
self.
Well, gas is taking care of that.
I thought
I think people might be.
cycles every like 20 years, right? The 70s and then the 90s. And
I don't know, man. $5 a gallon feels a little high.
that's true. We'll see it how it unfolds. Yeah, I'm looking forward to having my solar powered electric car at some point, self-driving me everywhere. But we'll see. I want to
One
be
sweet day.
optimistic. Yeah, exactly. No, we got a minivan. Oh, you want to change games? Should we go to?
Yeah, we can change games. I also see a couple of questions in the chat.
I will get Contra. Should we go with that next?
Yes, it works.
All right. Let's do Contra, and then I'll get to questions. You ready for this?
Let's see. Do I remember?
Oh, no, let's do this.
Cool.
Let's do the prediction. We did this one with, does Brad know the code? Does Brad know the Konami code? Yes or no? Don't answer it yet. We're going to see what the audience says. How long has it been since you played this game?
This may have been 30 years.
All right.
What year is this right now? Jesus. Yeah. it may have been longer than that.
You don't want to answer that question.
Right, yeah.
All right, we're going to do a 1 minute prediction before you play it all. All right. So the prediction is, does Brad know the Konami code? For those of you not familiar, Konami is the producer of Contra. It also did a bunch of other games. There was a code that basically gave you, what was it in this case? It was
I think like 30 lives.
Something like that, yeah. And it's a standard across Konami games, and it's been over 25 years. Does Brad know the Konami code? Yes or no? Oh, man. Because this one, I played Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2.
Oh, I love that game.
There was 9 rests if you did the Konami code on that one as well. So this was a key to being successful in your gameplay. But anyway, before we get to that, Accomplished wants to know, how can meteorologists communicate the urgency of severe weather better to the public? So we'll get back to that question right after we get the answer to, does Brad know the Konami code? Good luck finding that answer on Google. You guys can't cheat on this one. What do you know about Brad and his gameplay? I would say yes, you do know the Konami code.
Okay.
All right, time is up. Do you know it?
I think I should try it first. Maybe I think I know it, or should I say it first? I think it's.
Oh, you did 2-player.
Oh no.
Did you get it though?
I don't think so.
Let's try it again. Reset you.
Yeah.
Reset. All right, Suits. So tell us it.
Up, down, left, right, BA start.
Yes, that is the Konami code. Well done, sir. And the audience had faith in you. They were very confident.
Thank you.
You knew the Konami code. So nobody got any payout on that, but you guys can have pride in knowing that you had faith.
I knew all this. I knew all this useless information, all this useless knowledge would come back someday. Actually,
who knew it would be Ask a Scientist Gaming? So you have infinite lives. You don't need the code, but you can put it in if you want. It's totally up to you.
Yeah, there it is.
Contra. You got it.
There it is.
Well done. Should we keep track? Did you beat this game back in the day? Oh,
that's a bad start.
All right, let's go back to.
I forgot it was semi-automatic. I didn't.
Spreads, man. Got to get the spreads. Nope. All right, do you want to guess what the speedrun record is in this game?
Me?
Yep.
Okay. Speed run record for the entire game?
Yep, beating the entire game. How fast?
I'm gonna go with. It's always something that's ridiculous. I'm gonna say
You know how this works, then.
it is 18 minutes.
9 minutes and 48 seconds.
Oh
I love
pretty sure
answering.
I've never.
I love asking that question because, like, they always, you're right, they find something. The deathless plus finding faster ways to kill things, absolutely monumental.
I'm terrible at this game now.
All right, Accomplished wants to know, how can meteorologists communicate the urgency of severe weather better to the public?
Honestly, this is a question that we've been asking for quite a long time, mostly because people have a really hard time with understanding what our warnings right now even mean. Like, what is a watch? What is a warning? Jesus. And, you know, how do we begin to help people understand in the moment where it really matters what they should do and when they should take action? And honestly, we've been doing a lot of surveying, trying to do a lot of social science sort of experiments and trying to understand, you know, what people gather from the warnings that we have right now. So think about, you know, what is a watch and what is a warning? A watch is basically something that all the ingredients are in place. And I think this is the right spot. And a warning is when things have actually come to manifest and are actually about to occur. So if you think about it, if you walk into the house on any given evening and you see eggs, milk, flour, sugar, and frosting on the counter.
That's Cake
Right.
Watch.
This is a cake watch, right? Or you know a cake is possible.
Amazing analogy. I like where you're going with this.
But you do not know. Oh, there's my bonus.
Yeah.
You do not know if an actual cake is going to happen. Doesn't mean a cake is going to happen.
Yeah. Then
It
when
just means
does-
that all the ingredients are in place for a cake to occur. So when the actual cake is there, then you have a warning. So if you hear a tornado watch, that means that, okay, we have the instability, we have the potential for thunderstorms to be there, we have the spin in the atmosphere necessary that if a storm were to develop, tornadoes would be possible. And so these watches typically cover a larger area because it's hard for you to say exactly where a tornado might occur hours ahead of time. But you can, and we're much better at it now, giving people warning with understanding when tornadoes are going to occur with maybe about a 15, 20 minute, even sometimes a 30-minute warning. And that's when a warning is actually, so you actually have a tornado that's either been spotted by law enforcement as a trained weather spotter or Doppler radar, which is where the vast majority, this time that. That's where the vast majority of our tornado warnings do come from now.
That's interesting. I've never, I guess I kind of intuited that was the definition, but I never heard the formal, you know, watch versus warning.
Yeah, because I mean, you can understand how it might be confusing to people though, because you think tornado watch, when people hear watch, that means, oh, okay, I'm watching a tornado.
Yeah.
You know, that must means it's actually occurring. I'm going to run through every life.
It's fine. You haven't finished. You haven't lost any according to the game.
Oh, good.
No, that's intriguing. I mean, I grew up in like middle Minnesota, so we had regular tornado issues, right? And I grew up in a trailer house, so it was a very urgent thing. And then I go to and also winters and how deadly those can be. And then I go to Southern California, and the weather's always the same, right? Like you're Los Angeles, you don't even think about the weather. And it was an issue you have, like Minnesota, it's a discussion point to talk about weather and like what's the weather going to be, and I have to plan accordingly. And you go to LA and you can just ignore weather.
That's right. It's kind of nice, isn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of nice, but also it feeds into that issue. Like it's not my problem until it's a problem, and like how do you convince them? Heat waves, hurricanes, all the prevalence of these things is increasing.
You know, it's interesting out there. They're not necessarily worried about what the weather is going to be. They're just worried about water.
Yeah, no, that's
And that's their huge issue. So, it's funny. Depending on where you're from, you're okay with certain types of natural disasters.
Yeah,
certain
exactly.
kind of phenomena. Like,
no, that's 100% true.
I grew up in Louisiana, so I'm completely okay with the concept of dealing with hurricanes and to a lesser extent tornadoes. But if you were to ask someone who grew up in California or lived in California for a really long time and you told them, oh yeah, we're going to have a hurricane next week, they would probably flip out. But if you told me that it was going to be a wildfire and I have to leave my home in the matter of minutes, or there's going to be an earthquake that I have to deal with, I would not deal with that very well. And I think that's, it's just one of those things that, we as human beings, we sort of acclimate ourselves to the hazards, and it's like we get in our cars every day and knowing that, there could be an accident, terrible or irresponsible driver. But the key is to be aware of what you should do and to have a plan. I don't know if you recall, in January of 2021, I believe it was, Tallahassee had a tornado come through the south side of town. And it actually crossed just south of my neighborhood. And I remember being at this point, it was before they were mandated to go back to school, and the schools were around halfway, so our kid was still at home. She was in kindergarten. I remember her being at home for this, and the actual tornado went directly over her school. It didn't cause any major damage, but the fact that, that I was able to be at home with her and and we had a plan. We know where to go in our home.
Yeah.
We know that we have to be inside a room that doesn't have any exterior walls, which, strangely enough, with all these open concept homes, is even harder to find now. But because the chances are, if a tornado actually did fall or hit your home,
Hit boxes are hard on this one.
the windows and glass are not going to be enough to help you. And there were actual projectiles, the walls are too thin to stop those projectiles, like 2x4s, from penetrating. And the odds that they hit a stud are very small. So you just have to sort of have a plan and understand exactly what's going on for all those situations that are endemic to your area.
Related factoid, there's this like urban myth that you should open your windows when a storm and wind is coming through. Don't do that.
Please.
It'll tear your roof off.
Yes, your roof will be gone.
Don't do that. It doesn't
because
alleviate pressure or anything.
It actually provides lift. Like think just like an airplane. It allows the air to get under those wings or under your roof, and then it lift off.
It's crazy.
But also tape on windows does not work either.
Tape on windows.
Yeah, people put, some people tape their windows during hurricanes.
So they won't like break, or
so they won't break, or the glass won't
it's like a pseudo
shatter or something like that.
A pseudo safety glass. You need some very specialized tape.
That's not. I don't remember this.
No, but you're 100% right about the like climatizing yourself to disasters. Because I grew up in Minnesota, so like tornadoes, I even survived, minus 60 winters, but that was normal to me, right? And then I go to California and they're like, earthquakes, that you can't hide from that. You don't know where that's coming from.
You don't know when it's coming. And
then Florida, we have hurricanes and sinkholes, and I'm like, this is not, what's wrong with you people?
So to go along with your story about Minnesota, I have similar sort of stories from being in Iowa, and of course I came from Louisiana, so it's a little bit different climate-wise. But here's the trick, right? So when I moved into my dorm, which was built in 1920-something, and since then they've torn it down. Of course, that's what you do. You go to school and you tear down what you had to suffer through.
Lead paint, yeah.
I'm sure all of that.
Yeah, you're fine. You're
of course. So my dorm was old enough where it did not have air conditioning. But it's Iowa in summertime, and I don't know if you know, in Minnesota, it gets hot.
Yeah, it does.
In the summertime.
It's less humid, but it hits on.
It's less humid, and I don't know if I have I might have a factoid about that as well. But so I moved in and it was 93 degrees, and I was on the 4th floor moving in all my stuff on the day of move-in. And this was in August. And then it snowed October 1st. I picture not in it. And I was like, what is happening here? Now, mind you, I had only seen snow one time in my life before this, and it took every perfect situation and scenario for the snow to happen, and here I am October 1st, and like, what have I done to myself? Like, why am I here?
The weather's following you around is what we learned.
Basically,
you are the geography.
I'm
the
Jim Cantori,
right? You made everything happen. That's amazing.
Yeah, so it really opened my eyes, and I remember promising myself at one point, I was like, I'm not going to class ever if the temperature's below zero. And we had this one stretch, I think, the fourth year I was there, and we went on a 20-day stretch, 20-day stretch where the temperature did not get above 25 degrees, which for Minnesota doesn't sound like a lot, but in Iowa, it's cold enough where the lakes freeze. And I think that's sort of the difference between places and acclimating. Like, okay, well, do the lakes actually freeze where you are? Does the snow stay on the ground forever until March?
Exactly. Permafrost for 9 months.
Right, that's a different style of living than places where it might actually melt. But I told myself I wasn't going to go to class if it was under, so okay, 20, 25, okay, that was fine. I had figured out how to manage through that. But we had a 3-day stretch within that 25 days where the temperature did not get above zero. And I remember sitting in my living room looking, and of course I had to take the bus. I had to walk down the block to the bus, and the crunch of snow under my Timberland boots, walking to the bus stop, and that's still the sound, the crunching of it is one of the most eerie. It's like nails on a chalkboard for me. And it was the worst. Now, one thing I didn't realize at the University of Minnesota, and I have a beef with Iowa State for this, because the University of Minnesota has a cheat code.
Tunnels.
They have tunnels.
And bridges, and
they have tunnels on their campus underground, so they don't have to walk outside in the elements.
Minneapolis is the same way. Everything is connected by bridges and walkways and all sorts of stuff. Yeah,
we did. And when I found out about that, I was like, wait, so you guys are really up here dealing with minus 40, but you don't have to go outside. Like, you can figure out a way to.
There was a movie in the 90s. It was an independent film where it was like a bet. It wasn't in Minnesota. I think it was actually in Canada. But like a group of people made a bet to see who could stay inside the longest. And in a city that's connected by tunnels and bridges, you don't have to go out for years if you don't want to. I don't know if it's good for your health, but yeah. All right, Reese's Pieces. My favorite King of the Hill joke is that Phoenix, Arizona is a monument to man's ignorance. Isn't it arrogance? A monument to man's arrogance?
Phoenix is a very interesting one because, of course, we're forcing a city in the desert, right?
Yeah. No, that's...
And I think the worst part about it is that the residents, and where you can see manifested now, is that it's just so difficult for them to understand, how it's sustainable water-wise. And you just hope that things take a turn and you get what you need for the season. But I talked earlier at length about the urban heat island. Phoenix is actually one of the cities that has been documented to have an urban cool island, because of the amount of irrigation that occurs in the city. We actually pump more water into the cities. And because we're pumping that excess water to the cities, we're having more evapotranspiration. And evapotranspiration is a cooling effect due to latent heat exchange. So arid cities or cities in deserts oftentimes can have a cool island effect. Not consistently, not all the time, but it depending on, what's going on in the surrounding area. So the desert itself would be warmer than the city, or at least the parts of the city that have high levels of irrigation. If you still find, even within cities, desert cities themselves, parts that are, this is the one we do slides.
So that the one of the intense things I learned about like the LA basin is they have these like reflective spheres they put on top or something like that, right? They have one that blocks evaporation. Have you heard of these things? It's for
they put on top of the canals and things like that to slow down the evaporation.
It's like a ball pit they put on top of entire canals.
Yeah, so I saw I think it was last semester, one of my students showed me a paper, because sometimes I have my students introduce papers for the classes, and they talked about one of the things that they're considering doing in California is using the aqueducts as a place to put solar panels. So not only would you protect the water from evapotranspiration, but you also be creating energy.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's an ingenious idea on one hand. And you think, well, what about all the mining that's going to have to do to get the actual...
Yeah.
So there's two sides to all of it, right? And, it's not going to be a perfect solution, but...
Is it worth it? So Reese's Pieces, I found the actual quote. So Bobby says, 111 degrees, Phoenix can't really be that hot, can it? Oh my God, it's like standing on the sun. This city should not exist. It's a monument to man's arrogance. That is an amazing quote. King of the Hill. Thank you for that. Reese's Pieces, thank you for reminding me
That's a
that.
good one, man.
Cuddle Puppy, I changed the title. I put a colon in there if that makes you feel better. Cuddle Puppy said, the title makes it sound like he has a PhD in Mortal Kombat 2.
Thank you. That is a great compliment. I really do appreciate
You
it.
probably put in comparable hours. Like,
You have no idea. I'm going to tell my cousin that you said that because we used to play these games all the time. And he is going to be so jealous of that.
The honorary PhD in Mortal Kombat 2. Cuddle Puppy, thank you for coming back. Reese's Pieces, always a pleasure for you guys to come. The Gatherer, first time chat, thank you for joining us on Ask a Scientist Gaming. Their question is, what's the most surprising finding in a study you've got? What's your aha moment from your research?
Most aha moment. So, in a paper that can I jump on this? I can't. In a paper that I did looking at the northeastern United States, I was interested in how there's been a lot of research out about how cities impact precipitation, particularly in convective activity and thunderstorms in warm seasons, so thunderstorms in summer. But there's very little research done to show how urban areas might impact the boundary layer, or what we like to call the lowest 1 kilometer of the atmosphere. And can they actually impact the temperature profile enough to change precipitation type? And what we found is that when we ran the models, some of the cities, so basically what we set it up, long story short, we set the city up, we set the model up where we ran it for how the cities were currently and how they actually situated, and found out, okay, this is what the temperatures and precipitation over a certain event would be in this city. And we ran the same event if we were to remove all the cities as a control. And then we ran, what if we only removed Washington, D.C.? And what if we only removed Philadelphia and New York? We found a response that urbanization was playing a role not only just locally, but regionally. And what we found is that part of the urban heat island in Philadelphia is due to the existence of Washington, D.C. So that means that there's a regional sort of connection between these cities, even if they aren't contiguous, even if there's a rural area. And if you've been on that ride before between those two cities, you know that there is some rural area between that. There is but it's still some natural land cover. But it's incredible to me, and all it really matters is in research, all you have to do is be able to change the actual temperature in the boundary layer by about 1 Kelvin, so 1 degree Celsius, so maybe about 2 degrees Fahrenheit, in order for there to be a phase change from liquid to frozen or vice versa. Mm-hmm. And we found that temperature changes on the order of 2 to 3 degrees Celsius were occurring because of the existence of these
DC exists.
Yeah.
It's DC's fault.
Yeah, DC's fault.
For many reasons.
A lot of things happen.
But also, Philadelphia's that is really fun.
Yeah, so we're really focused now on trying to understand what the real sort of reasons for that are, and trying to understand, is it due to just clearly there's a thermal reaction there, but is it because of regional circulations are changing? Is there a difference in the amount of heat and moisture that's being evicted from the Atlantic Ocean into that area because of the proximity to the ocean? So all the things you have to account for, and some of those things you have to just hold constant. But we're really sort of just trying to get an idea of how that all works, because to me, that was a very fascinating finding. I didn't expect it to. I thought there might be something, because in very many ways, when heat goes into the atmosphere from a city, it doesn't just disappear. Imagine if you had a fire in a city and you had a smoke plume. That smoke doesn't just go up in the atmosphere and disappear. It usually advects downwind. And the same thing happens with heat. It advects downwind. So the question is, well, how much of the heat, how intense does the heat island have to be in order to advect far enough downwind to impact other cities? Mm-hmm. And that's part of the reason why we asked that question. Yeah.
No, that's really fun. I mean, so what's maybe you don't have an answer to this. What's the radius of effect on something like that? Obviously the ocean water bodies, they would dampen that to some degree, presumably. But is there a certain, I mean, LA is not going to affect New York in the same way as.
That's right. That's right. You'll find that oftentimes, depending on, it varies depending on not only the morphology of the city, so how the city is built, but also the size of the city itself, the intensity of the urban heat island. How do I get across here? not like that.
Yeah, that's one of the hardest jumps. And that, I guess that thing is random. That's one of the things that ruins speedruns. Imagine running a perfect game up to here and just that thing just wrecks you. Absolutely devastating. But harkening back to the question by Accomplished earlier about communicating severity of weather, did you hear, I think this was announced today, there's a city in Spain that decided to name the heat wave.
Really? What did they name it? No, I didn't.
Zoe.
They named it Zoe?
So it's heat wave Zoe. And so this is, I read up a little bit on it, people why they were rationalizing that, and that like naming hurricanes, you add character to it. Mm-hmm. And then there's a psychological aspect of taking it more seriously when it has, you know, a trait or a personality or something like that.
Yeah.
And so the idea is maybe this will help people be more aware of heat waves, like making them aware of this is bad. You need to pay attention. You can't go out, you know, hiking during a heat wave. It's,
you know, I don't mind that, because in one of my mentors, Dr. Marshall Shepard, he wrote an article in a blog earlier this week about the heat wave in particular. In that, oftentimes when we talk about heat waves, we usually look at they show images of kids at ice cream shops, mm-hmm. you know, and things like that, and where you know, like no, it's not. These are not situations where you can consider it as an opportunity to really go and relax. Many people are struggling, particularly in these long heat waves. It's not necessarily how hot it is during the day that's the problem in most of these scenarios. It's the exposure long term over several days and the heat stress that it puts on the bodies, particularly the people who are most vulnerable. I think the elderly, little children. You know, so if you go, imagine you have a heat wave, and here in Florida, it not necessarily matter as much because we're always hot in Florida. But if you live in a place where they're not acclimated to it, or they just don't have the infrastructure, and at night the temperatures are not dropping below, say, 77, 78, or 80 degrees, and they have to deal with that night after night, and their body's just not acclimated to it. And the heat itself isn't what kills you. What kills you is the stress on the body and the pre-existing conditions that you already have that are exacerbated in those scenarios. How do I get it? Oh, so you're just gonna run over me? Yeah, so it's a very... I'm all for them, actually, now that you brought that to my attention, because remember a few years ago, the Weather Channel started naming winter storms.
Yeah. No, and I think there are psychology studies on this being impactful. Cuddle Puppy, I don't know what happened, why not Nightbot freaked out on you, because you have VIP status, you should be able to post links. I don't know what's going on there, but the eye roll is understood. I apologize. Yeah. Sorry about that. But yeah, let's start naming storms.
Yeah, and the real bad ones, I imagine they won't name another one. What do they name her? Zoe?
Zoe, yeah.
Zoe.
Yeah, they retire names. They do with the hurricane system.
Yeah, so imagine if you woke up one morning and you were in southern Louisiana and they said, "Oh, Tropical Storm Katrina is formed." right now, you would absolutely, PTSD is a real thing.
Yeah.
In that situation, so that's why they retire those names. So
it's, who names the hurricanes? That the NOAA, is it? That's a formalized system.
Actually, the WHO.
Okay.
The world, not the WHO, WMO. Excuse me.
World Meteorology.
I've been watching the news too much for the last 2 years.
That's understandable.
WMO, the World Meteorological Organization. They, in conjunction with the local, the hurricane authorities, name the storms in particular basins.
I see. Yeah, because this naming a heat wave was just like one city was trying to do it. And I don't think it's formalized in any way, but I'd be very curious.
Yeah, the Weather Channel got a lot of pushback for that initially too, but I think it sort of became their thing. I mean, people tend to hate what they don't understand or has not been done before, or if it's not official.
Well, it's any change of any kind.
Yeah, right? They don't like any change. Over time, they sort of gotten used to it and realized it didn't hurt anybody for them to be naming.
They started with Z. Will the next heat wave start with Y? I don't know what their rules are. They worked with some think tank to come up with strategies. I didn't go too deep into it, but it's not formalized by any agency. I think it was just literally one city wanted to deal with it. They proposed this as a way. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see if they pick up on that.
That's pretty interesting.
Kettle Puppy wants to know, this might be outside your expertise. How long until Yellowstone supervolcano explodes? Is it soon, or do I have to do my homework?
Very much so out of my expertise.
That was the geology.
Yeah, that's definitely the geology. But
Yeah.
if you have any insight on that, I will definitely tune in. Let us know in the stream.
Yeah. That's
use
enough
it.
super volcanoes. Need to have I don't think I've had a geologist on yet. I'll definitely need to do that.
I kind of feel sad if I've never actually taken a geology class.
There's still time.
There is time. It's like some people mistake meteorologists, oddly enough, for being like astronomers all the time, because it says meteorology.
Yeah.
But meteor in this sense actually just literally means anything that's falling from the sky.
I did not know that. Is that the
That's the root,
Latin
yeah.
translation? Wow.
That's right.
I mean, yeah, it's fair. Stuff that falls. We need to get Pierce Brosnan on call to check out Yellowstone. Absolutely, documentary. Dante's Peak.
You'd have a whole different audience. Dante's Peak was that movie. That's pretty epic.
Oh,
Past the clouds.
Ali B, I didn't catch the response, but what was the rationale for naming heat waves? The way I understood it is it increases the sense of urgency. Like with hurricanes, it makes it feel more real. It's like giving it agency, and it's all psychology. It's not a real. It's like how we psychologically respond to something when we personify it. We give it like motivations and things like that. We respond differently to it.
So were they preemptively naming it, or did they name it after the fact?
They named it after the fact because this is crazy.
Yeah, I was already talking to a friend who's over there. He's in Ireland. He was talking about how he went to school in Georgia, so it's not hot to him, but 87 degrees in Ireland. It's a completely different thing. There are very few air conditioners in the actual city itself. So he was talking about how they just are not ready for those types of things. And I was saying that I'm going to have to update the slides for my class because I have the European heat waves from the 2000s, and I think 2012, I believe, was the last one where they attributed maybe 50,000 deaths to the last heat wave.
That's crazy, isn't it?
But this heat was even beyond that. Of course, we're talking about all-time highs by sometimes 9-10 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah,
we're talking about like smashing records. So think about wherever you are right now. If the all-time high temperature, I don't know what it is in Phoenix. It might be 125 or 120, 127 or something like that. Imagine if it hit 137. Right, that would be something that would be completely beyond, and one that would probably be very close to a global record. Mm-hmm. But we're going to see things like that happening more commonplace, and it's really just unfortunate.
Like you said, a lot of those places in Europe not built with air conditioning, not able to handle it. And they're debating now, like, is there a policy change where new buildings have to be built with air conditioning because this is the new standard? It's crazy. It just disrupts everything.
This board is had a lot of activity. I remember how much easier this game was with two players.
Yeah, because the number of bad guys stayed the same. No, you're absolutely right. You good on beer? You need another one.
I've been hitting the B button so much that I've been I missed the actual beer. I'll play a little catch up since it's.
Oh, no worries.
Lets me through the
Wait till
door.
later in the night when they request like 30 of these in a row, take a drink. It'll be a good time. My apartment in Seattle was always 10 degrees warmer than outside. I'm glad I wasn't there for the heat waves.
Oh,
yeah, that's.
I think they have one right now, if I'm not mistaken, right? In the last couple of days. Oh,
that's one of those things that it disproportionately affects people. Reese's Pieces, thank you. Same in Chicago, it was an oven. Absolutely. But it disproportionately affects people, like low income in particular, urban areas a lot more, and then it's amplified by the heat being higher in those areas where it's just not as wooded typically.
That's right. That's right. And that's one of the things that, and honestly, I think a lot of people are starting to understand that it affects their communities more. In Florida, recently they made a law where high schools have to monitor the wet bulb globe temperature, which effectively is a measure of how of how the atmospheric conditions are as it relates to your body's ability to cool itself. Most people don't know, and maybe this is another factoid, our bodies are actually taking advantage of this thing called latent heat. So the reason why we sweat is because when the water evaporates off of our skin, it actually absorbs heat. So in its absorbing heat, it absorbs it not only from the air around us, but also from our skin. And that's why when the wind blows on sweat, it's a cooling sensation. So that same latent heat is a critical part in weather and climate. And we find that to be true in scenarios where you have outdoor workers, construction workers, landscapers, people who do sports, people who are just training outside or just exposed to the elements, homeless individuals, or people who are residentially challenged. I think it's more proper way to say it right now. But if you're looking at that, those are things that we have to monitor, but those same monitoring requirements aren't there for middle school football. So we're trying to partner with those sort of communities to help them better understand what their exposure is when they're not giving the funding and the equipment to be actually, when they're actually out there in the same elements with kids that are actually younger physically exposed to it, who don't have even the resilience of kids a couple years older than them. So I think it's critical that we really just sort of continue to engage with these people and understand what they need in their communities, and do it from a perspective of not this is what's happening in your communities, but listen to them and understanding, what is happening in their community. What might we not know about that we can try to better understand that could help these people out? Somebody said something to me that was really key about a year ago. It was actually in January of this year. It was an individual who really does a lot of work with resiliency.
Just want to note right now, you're killing it with spreads.
I don't ever want to let them go.
No, absolutely. This is the...
I remember this. I don't know why this reminds me of the brain from Shredder from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Krang.
Yeah, there you go.
It's fair. It's probably the same rendering. The final boss. Let's go. Yeah, let's get this.
Oh, this is the final boss. That's right.
Ali Boo says, Brad, this was great. Thanks. Got to go back to bed routine.
Thanks for stopping by, Ali. We appreciate it.
I think that's one of my colleagues in chemistry.
Okay.
For sure. And Cuddle Puppy, heads up. They can redeem 33 Take-A drinks. Oh. I thought about at some point, so Take a Drink costs what on this? Internet points. Take a Drink is 500 points. So if they follow us and watch for an hour, they can make us take a drink. I was thinking about take a shot for 10,000.
Or if you stick around for an hour, take a shot for 10,000. Salud.
Exactly. What's your hard alcohol of choice tonight?
Let's see.
So I think you can run at it in angle. Do you get hurt if you go next to it?
I don't know. That's the thing. I don't remember.
So if you
go under
45, I think that's the trick right there. Yep.
Okay.
Oh, didn't really help.
I'm just working on my quads, man.
Earn it. All right. Accomplished. Yeah. Maya said it's so hot here in the summer, you should change the name from Heat Wave to Heat Tsunami.
That's funny. That's so funny, man.
Oh, that's your 7-year-old?
Yes. Heat Tsunami. I'm gonna run it up the chain.
Yeah, use the terminology. I like it. Well, congratulations. Contra. Done.
You know how satisfying seeing scrolling text was
back in the day
when you were 8, 9 years old, man.
And that's the way it was. It was you got 2 seconds of scrolling screen, and then it's done.
It's all staff. All staff. Mario the princess comes out.
Yep.
Yoshi, all of his kids hatch, and then the whole thing is over with.
Yeah. And now we can watch a YouTube video that plays one after another.
That's right.
All right. What do you want to do next?
What do we have lined up?
GoldenEye, we have NCAA.
Oh man, GoldenEye. I'm nervous that I'm going to be so terrible in that. Let's go to NCAA first, since I just finished shooting things.
NCAA. All right, this will take a bit to set up. We're running a PlayStation 3 emulator, which is kind of fun. Fun factoid for the audience: So there's an like anti-piracy software that's on PlayStations. It's DMC. I don't remember what it was called, DMCH or something. But it basically means a capture card can't render the images or something. And so PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5, you can turn it off, but PlayStation 3 you can't. So Brad wanted to bring over his PlayStation 3, and then we learned out you can't hook it up. So instead, we have a PlayStation emulator that we're working with right now. So it's going to take us a little bit of time to load the game, but we should be able to play PlayStation 3. Sorry, that's for you.
So is PlayStation 3 therefore sort of like this dead spot in Twitch where many people don't stream?
Well, so there's a converter. I looked this up. There's an HDMI splitter that you can get that like screws with the signal so you can do it. Okay. And it's like a $10 part, but it's not something you necessarily have laying around.
That's right.
So yeah, we're going to play NCAA 2014. Or 14, I guess.
This is not the right controller. There we go.
GoldenEye hasn't aged well. What do you think?
I think it's the controls. I'm so used to the two.
The two joysticks. Yeah. Really hard to control shooting and
we used to play that for hours.
Oh man, the multiplayer was an odd job. The jerk friend that sat in the corner with that little the really short guy.
Yeah.
And golden gun slappers only.
And I think you could play with how many people?
Like it's 50 characters or something. It was ridiculous. Or people at once.
Yeah, at once.
4 on a single.
Yeah, no, there's 4 you can plug in. So we used to have those cords and extender cards, and used to have the cords extending across the hallways in the dorm room playing those, and it was something to behold.
Yeah, that was classic. So we had an issue with this emulator earlier where it wouldn't render the field. So we're going to see if this works out. So you're always FSU? That's your go-to?
So FSU was my first, and to give you a little background on that. So I'm from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And when I was I believe it was either when I was in middle school or in high school. Some of you may know who Warwick Dunn is. He played for Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but he also went to Florida State University. But he was from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And when I was in middle high school, maybe like 8th, 9th grade or something like that, his mother was a police officer and she died in the line of duty. So I remember when all of that happened, and I remember once he went to the league, he would come back. Shout out to Warwick Dunn. I think he's actually a teammate of several people who are still around town right now. And he would buy a home for a single mother.
Wow.
And I think he still does that till this day. So I found that it's something that was beautiful. So we was at Florida State. I became a fan because he was there, and ever since then I've been with Florida State. Of course, I love LSU as well, but let's be clear: on Labor Day in New Orleans, I will be pulling for the Seminoles, and probably the only time this year I'll be pulling against the LSU Tigers this year.
That's fair. That's amazing work done.
To the winner of today's game goes the Jefferson Epps Trophy.
So they picked Virginia on this? Or
they picked Virginia, so apparently Virginia is a rival.
Is that a thing?
And do we have rivals anymore right now?
This game's so unrealistic. Well, not with the shuffling of the leagues and what the hell.
Yeah, it's hard to pin them down, right?
Yeah.
If it's not Miami or Clemson, I guess UF will always be one.
Yeah. It's one of those, like, I don't keep track of sport. I did a lot of sports in high school and college and got hurt a bunch, and it was like I detached it from it for a decade, but I still see like the trickles of sport news on like Reddit and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's hard not to keep track of it and watch highlights. And sound panicked a little.
Let's see if I can change the camera. Maybe.
What was it doing?
Let's see if I can change the camera. It was a sideline view, and that was kind of strange.
Is it coaching mode?
Maybe.
I don't know.
Visual settings. Let's try that out. Sorry, guys. Standard camera view. Yeah, it's normal.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. See if you can control it, because there's a coaching mode on this, right, where you can just let the game play.
That's
and
right.
You pick
That's
plays. Right. Yeah. If anyone's played NCAA 14, NCAA football, giving 20-year-olds brain damage and compensating them with $0, but they get a valuable education.
Yeah. See, this is different. I must be in coaching mode because I can't move. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we might
So I have to figure out how to get out of it. I think usually you can. There's a, I don't say it's R3 or something like that.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, college football is something else, but we're at FSU, so we won't say anything about any of that.
No, not right now. We'll sort of leave that be.
Yeah, let's not start fights that we can't win. Although I've had a few athletes in my class. I don't know how often you have. In Division I, if they're in the fall sport, they have to be traveling a lot.
Yeah, I get that a lot in my spring classes, my undergrads. I hadn't really interacted with the football players in that sense, but a variety of other sports.
Is the audio freaking out for you guys right now?
You
might have to start over.
Yeah, I might have to.
Yeah. No worries. We'll start. We should do another prediction. It's been a while and we're due. Which one do you want to talk about?
Let's go with
That's kind of relevant
let's go with that.
to large storms. I think that's a good one. All right, you guys ready for another prediction? If you're not following us, click the follow button. Get your standard internet points and buy 33 take-a-drinks. All right, so the question is, in recorded history, this is like early 1900s on, how many recorded Category 5 hurricanes have hit landfall in the United States? Is it greater than 5 or less than or equal to 5? I don't know formal notation for less than equal, but the one on the right is less than or equal to. So anyone, if you haven't done predictions before, right on top of your chat, you can click the predict button and you can basically gamble as many points as you want on which one of these answers you think is correct. Note you are an Ask a Scientist Gaming honor code, so you can't look up the answer. You have to rely on your intuition or what you know of hurricanes in the US, or just guess, but you can bet your points accordingly. How confident are you in there? How many recorded Category 5 hurricanes to landfall in the US? Greater than 5, less than or equal to 5? It's a fun question.
It is.
That's
it is.
broad
The
history.
answer is surprising.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not as intuitive as you would think.
It's one of the, I don't want to give away answers or anything, but like and Category 5, it's based on the velocity and the energy of the hurricane. Is that correct?
It's based on velocity.
It's exclusively
I think you locked
velocity.
up a
Okay.
little bit.
Man, I don't know if it's freezing because we're streaming at the same time and I can't run both systems.
Oh. No,
Should we bail and go
we can
with,
bail.
you want to do GoldenEye?
Yeah, let's do GoldenEye.
Let's do it. Let's punish ourselves.
I'm just going to try to do the running method. I'm going to try to run past everyone. See if this works because my aim is going to be terrible. It's
All right. So NCAA 2014, we tried really hard to make that work. We tried to run an emulator. It turns out my computer cannot stream while doing emulator simultaneously. Because it was working before we started streaming, which was okay. All right. You have 5 seconds. Throw your guesses in there now. Recorded Category 5 hurricanes. All right, Brad, what is the answer?
The answer is 4.
Less than or equal to 5. So the total number of recorded Category 5 hurricanes in the last 10, 20 years.
About 110 or so. So the first would be the Labor Day hurricane in the 1930s, I believe 1932, if I'm not mistaken. The next would be, and this might actually, so that was before they actually started naming them. The next would be Hurricane Camille, which was 1969, as it made landfall. So the Labor Day hurricane made landfall in the Florida Keys as a Category 5, and then made landfall on the Florida Peninsula as a Category 3. Camille made landfall on the Mississippi Gulf Coast as a Category 5 storm. I mean, if any of you have ever heard anything about Katrina, this is the storm that is at least in myth now. I don't know if it's actually urban legend says that people were throwing hurricane parties in apartment buildings during Katrina because they didn't believe either a storm would come or they had no idea what an actual storm surge would look like. And of course, a Category 5 leaves little behind on oceanfront property. The next one, and these are actually spaced out pretty far, about 30 years apart. Hurricane Andrew in 1992, which fun fact was actually the the determining factor on whether or not I was actually going to be a meteorologist. Hurricane Andrew struck South Florida as a Category 5 storm. And then actually made a second landfall in South Louisiana as a Category 3 storm. And that was my first time experiencing a hurricane. And I was hooked after that point. There was nothing. I think I gotta get his key card. You judo chop. So I remember that happening, and if I actually go, there's a quick story about this. If I was in the 6th grade at that time, so I'm dating myself a little bit, and I recall my mom, who had gone through Hurricane Betsy, which was a Category 3 that had struck southern Louisiana when she was younger, and she did not want us to, and there was a huge oak tree next to our home. There's supposed to be a key card somewhere. Uh-oh, someone's shooting me. Help. No one's coming for you, Bond. How do I control it? Okay, all right. Let's see. Can I open? I don't have the key card. So, or did I open it?
I thought it turned.
I thought I did too. Okay, so at 6th grade, my mom didn't want, oh, there we go. My mom did not want us to stay in the home next to a huge oak tree that was next to, because she was afraid it would fall, just like she had seen many of those other oak trees uprooted during that period of time. So we went to a shelter, which so happened to be at a church, a large church. And I recall going to sleep the night before and it being pretty quiet, and my mom shaking me and wake up in the morning, and she told me to come see. And she took me to the front door of the church, and it basically sort of opened up to a huge parking lot. You're not gonna alert them. Thank you. All right. It opened up to a huge parking lot, and that's it. And as I looked out, I saw the wind blowing sideways, and I thought, what in the world is this? I had never seen anything like it before. And I was wondering, where did I fall asleep and where did I get dropped into? Mm-hmm. And from that moment on, I started asking questions, well, why is this happening, and why is it happening here, and why doesn't it happen at any other time? But the image that still sticks in my head from that day wasn't necessarily just the wind and the rain blowing sideways, because that was magnificent in its own right. But as I stood there, 'cause I may have spent 10 minutes looking outside that door, and I saw a figure out front, and across the parking lot. And as you could look closer, it was 2 figures, a taller one and a shorter one. And I see them, they're walking toward the church across the parking lot. And they're getting closer. As they get closer, you can see that is a woman and her child. And they had left their home because they didn't know, a window had blown out. And they was afraid that the home wouldn't hold up during the rest of the storm. Mm-hmm. And that image sort of burned into my head, because you start thinking, not only is this the storm itself is an incredible phenomenon, but the decisions that people have to make during those storms play a huge role in me determining what I wanted. Can I get off of this? A huge role in me deciding what I wanted to be. So after that, I just started asking questions. Well, why is this happening? Why is this going on? And from that moment on, I knew I wanted to go into meteorology.
Mm-hmm. So that was the third? Yeah, and then Katrina.
Actually, no. So that was the third. The next one was Michael.
Katrina wasn't 5?
Katrina was a Category 5 over the Gulf of Mexico.
Oh, it didn't landfall Category 5.
But it made landfall, I believe, as a low-end Category 3 or a low-end Category 2. However, how do you jump in this game?
Can you jump? I don't know. Is that even a thing?
I don't know. I don't know how I didn't die every time. Now that I'm looking at this.
Cuddle puppy. USA gets all the tornadoes and all the hurricanes. We're number 1. USA.
Yeah, we definitely get this tornado. We're basically the tornado capital of the world. You're right.
Yeah.
the perfect confluence of everything you need for a tornado here. Dry air off the rock.
So we had Allison Wing on at some point, and one of the questions was classifying, because there's hurricanes, there's tornadoes, there's typhoons, there's cyclones. It depends on where it is, and there's all sorts of factors going into it.
Yeah, that's right. So while I think Florida has probably the highest profile when it comes to hurricanes, if you live in the Western Pacific, then you get typhoons year round.
Mm-hmm.
So because the waters are so much warmer there, and just the dynamics and things that work out. So our season is relatively shorter compared to theirs.
Is there a down in one of those buildings?
Bunkers somewhere.
I don't remember if there's like stairwells or something. Yeah. And I've played way too many. Oh, that doesn't help.
I'm here.
Okay.
Oh, man, this is terrible.
Reese's Pieces usually come through on old games for us. Any insights on where we should be going? Oh, bad guys. That is always a good sign. Any video game. There's something to kill.
I know you're right here. I know you're right here. Don't do the
Oh, look at that. Look at that move. You didn't know you were playing Mortal Kombat. Oh, Reese's Pieces never played GoldenEye 64.
Really? Oh, you got it. Yeah, go back and take some time on that.
So did you play the Halo franchise at all?
I did not.
No, you were PlayStation. You did Call of Duty probably.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can tell I'm actually missing I'm using the trigger. I keep hitting the trigger from
the
Call of
trigger.
Duty.
Yep. So there's this challenge so Halo 2 came out 18 years ago, and part of Halo's gameplay is they had these Easter eggs called skulls, and if you got a skull you could like enable special skills, and a lot of them were useless. They didn't do anything. Some of them did good stuff, but there's a challenge right now. Basically 18 years later, nobody has beaten Halo 2 with all those skulls on without death. And so there's a streamer that said, I will give $20,000 to anyone that beats Halo 2 with all the skulls on. It's called the Halo 2 Lasso Challenge.
You throwing your head in?
Absolutely not. Just like the best players in the world that are doing it right now, they're getting 5 hours in and dying. And they still have a couple hours of gameplay.
So how long do they think it's going to last?
I don't know. It's been a $5,000 challenge for like 5 years, and then it just got bumped up to, yeah, it's legendary, the highest difficulty, and all skulls except one skull. It's the Master Chief Invisible skull isn't there. But yeah, $20,000. That's a full-time job.
That is.
I mean, but what's good for streamers that do it on Twitch is like when you're 5 hours in, they'll have 4,000 viewers just because people want to see them beat this challenge. And so it's a way for them to increase their visibility. Even if they don't get it, they're still getting an audience. They're making money. So yeah, it's crazy. 20,000.
I didn't even have to go in there.
What?
I think the platform is on the dam. Because I'm not in double O.
Yeah, led you astray.
It's okay.
No
I'll try it
worries.
again. Have a little time.
Yeah, we unfortunately we don't have Game Genie codes for the Nintendo 64. Like it says there are cheats, but I've never got them to work.
Really?
So I have to figure out. Yeah. Legendary, highest difficulty, all skulls, no deaths. 7 hours.
7 hours.
Yep.
I think the running tactic kind of worked for
Can
me.
you use mouse and keyboard for the Halo challenge? I think you can. You can do Master Chief Collection or the PC version. I mean, what's crazy to me is for all the glitches they've found in these games, like speedrunning, like flipping through walls and doors and stuff, it still takes 7 hours to do that challenge.
Yeah.
Absolutely insane. All right, so we brought up Volcano. No, what was Dante's Peak with Pierce Brosnan, Yellowstone blowing up randomly. Leads us to one of our standard questions on the challenge or on the channel for you, Brad. So, watch a lot of movies, and there are times when you just shake your head at what happens on the screen. So, what movies / TV shows get your discipline right, and which ones get it wrong?
Get my discipline right. So I think probably the most popular one would have been Twister.
Oh, Twister. That was Allison Wing's answer too, actually.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
they were accurate, right? They did that stuff.
They did pretty well. They followed. You can tell they actually followed the researchers and try to understand, or at least chasers, and try to understand what was going on.
Yeah. Except for the tornadoes like growling and had like a roar to it, but I guess it's pretty loud.
It's sort of a rumbling sound. Now, granted, I've never actually been in a tornado. As a meteorologist, I've never been inside one, which is odd. Some people might say, "Well, you gotta chase it." No,
I don't need that.
I'm almost aged out of the desire to want to do this.
I don't need cancer to do cancer research. I don't need a hurricane to do. Yeah, no.
But if I were to go chasing a storm, it would be a tornado. I just would not go chasing in the southeastern United States. There's too many hills and too many trees. You'd have to go on the plains where you can see for miles, get an idea, and there's a much more consistent road network.
That's interesting. Is the path more predictable on plains than hills? And
not necessarily a path, but you want visibility on the storm.
I can see, so you can just keep your eye on it.
Yeah, because in case something changes with the path of it, then you can be able to. You can learn, which direction to approach the storm from.
Don't knock it till you try it.
Fair enough.
Yeah, like you can't argue with that. Man, somebody needs to make Storm Chaser the video game. I don't know why that hasn't happened yet. Man, there's this. So it's fun on Twitch. You see all these streamers. They like adopt new games and will play them to death, and then they disappear. Like, what was the sus game? Do you remember? Do you know what I'm talking about? You had like a group of people and you figure out who's the suspect, who's the murderer. God, what? Somebody.
Oh no.
What's the name of that game? It was huge for like 6 months and then it disappeared. But anyway, the new game out is called Stray. Among Us. Thank you, Reese's Pieces. Have you heard of that one before?
I've heard of Among Us. I've never played it.
It's multiplayer. It's like murder mystery, basically. You go around and do tasks. But Among Us, yes. But the new game out that's sweeping over Twitch is called Stray. And you essentially are playing as a stray cat walking around and doing tasks.
I heard about that today. Literally, I heard about that today. And I'm like, wow, you're going to be a feral cat.
It's huge. It's one of the most, I think it's the highest rated game on Steam right now.
So have you watched it yet?
I've watched. It's like you are a cat walking around and you have to follow other cats and do tasks. And like, I should have busted out Stray for you. That's the thing. I mean, that's one thing I love about Twitch is it's made a cooperative gaming culture where it's just like a shared moment in time where everyone's doing the thing together. But I missed it. Did you beat it?
I did.
Nice. Congratulations.
Previous. Make sure I'm not in. Okay, Agent. That's why they make you do the same one. Yeah. I mean, I'm not open to being a stray cat for a little bit.
I'm curious,
I am kind of curious.
I mean, you should probably try Fall Guys with your daughter.
No, I do play Fall Guys with her, and so we have a lot of fun with that one.
That's another popular one right now, especially free to play.
Yeah, I found it. I was lucky, and I don't know if she's listening. I found it on the PlayStation Store, and it was, and I'm like, oh, it's because she asked about it, and I just went and looked, and it was free. So I'm like, oh, okay, it's one of those games where they just want you to play, and then do a bunch of add-ons, and I'm like, that's cool. So yeah. So we're supposed to shoot the guy in the head from the stall.
So Stray is a 5-hour-long single-player game. And Cuddle Puppy predicts no one will be playing it in a week. I mean, but a week of just one-hit wonder is amazing.
I think so too. I mean, they can get a little bit of something from that.
That was amazing. All right, anyone just joining us, Ask a Scientist Gaming, mediocre gameplay, expert level science. Dr. Brad Johnson, he's playing GoldenEye 64. Or is it just GoldenEye? I can't remember.
I think it's just GoldenEye.
Just GoldenEye 007.
Yep.
And he's also talking about meteorology, geography, talking about urban climate, modeling systems, interactions between atmosphere and land. He is happy to discuss any of those topics. If you guys have any questions related to any of those, we are happy to answer those questions. Yep. All right, so Twister got movies right. Which one's got it wrong? Day After Tomorrow?
Day After Tomorrow is one that I actually like for the drama. Right? Yeah. It's a great dramatic movie. However,
it's just disaster porn, right? It
is. Now, some of the premise is actually correct. At the very beginning of the movie, I don't know if you remember, there's a part where they're talking to the scientists in Great Britain, and the scientists have these buoys out in the North Atlantic where they're monitoring the ocean temperatures.
Yep.
What they're effectively doing is what one of the climate indicators that we like to look at is monitoring the North Atlantic circulation. So the Gulf Stream, because the Gulf Stream is so instrumental in sending energy and heat to Europe. As a matter of fact, Europe would effectively be northern Canada if there were no Gulf Stream current.
That is intriguing.
So, there's my key card. So if in that movie they had that part and they showed how, okay, the buoys show that the temperature is dropping. One, we don't think it's going to actually drop that fast. We think it might be more incremental than that, at least not to cause some sort of meltdown. But then they sort of go a little bit further beyond that.
just a little bit further.
they sort of Hollywooded a little bit.
Yeah.
When they talk about the actual the storms that pop up over the North American or Northern Hemisphere
that create a vacuum to space.
Yeah, something like that, and where it's bringing down this super cold air from the stratosphere and it's sinking so fast
is that even
the
theoretically?
Air can't warm. Well, the reason why that can't work is because when air sinks, density increases near the surface of the Earth, so the air compresses and it heats up.
It has to heat up. Yeah.
So
that's how your refrigerators work.
Right. So that is not quite.
So it's physically impossible.
So they underpinned it a little bit with climate scientists, and for the time where they actually did this, it's actually pretty impressive because, I mean, there weren't too many people who were. I closed the door myself. Oh, I messed up. Get out. Let me out. But yeah, so it's pretty impressive. They even, back in the early 2000s, they were able to sort of put some of that together. Now I think I got it.
So they got it kind of right, but also kind of wrong. Is there one that's just like head-shakingly, disgustingly bad? That, I mean, Sharknado is an obvious choice.
Yeah, that's good.
Anything else that looms in your brain?
Sharknado would have been my choice. You know, not only part one, but all 18 sequels.
Have you seen them all?
No, I saw one, and I was like, okay, I can't. I think it came out during my PhD program, and I couldn't dedicate too much time to watch the Sharknado. Oh, that's a problem.
I respect that they committed to the absurdity. Like they didn't think they were making something
like
better.
we're not here to to please you with knowledge.
Yeah.
Oh, don't shoot the scientists. Remember that, everyone.
Just general rule of thumb: don't shoot the scientists.
You might need him to set off whatever device.
Yeah. So back to day after tomorrow. If you're watching buoy data and you see it drop 10 degrees in like 2 minutes, who's your phone call to? Like how do you deal with that?
How do you deal with it? Well, man.
If I've learned anything from asteroid movies, it's like you take an envelope in hand and drive down the street and die on the way. So that's usually how it unfolds.
Yeah.
How would you realistically scientist?
Somebody has a key card. Somebody has. Oh, don't shoot the scientist, man. Don't run away, scientist. Who would I call? As I see the temperature drop 10 degrees on that buoy.
Yeah.
I'm calling someone who can do more than I can at that moment.
Exactly.
I mean, I don't really know. I mean, in that situation, you know, it's kind of these. We talk about, well, what would it be like if we were actually around to see what would really happen during climate change? And I think part of the reason why a lot of people are okay with inaction is because they figure they're not going to be around
when something
to have
happens.
To worry about it.
Yeah. Doesn't matter until it affects me.
Yeah, it's inherently selfish, but you know, what are people?
Yeah. No, that's true.
The fact I have not died yet.
Man, so I'm terrified by any of those like rapid development scenarios because I mean when you think about bureaucracy, just to get something done at FSU that's out of the ordinary, like how long it takes to make any decision and the number of people that have to do it. Did you just ended your mission?
In my mind, I was thinking Trevelyan, he's the enemy because he is at the end. But yeah,
no worries. Yeah. It didn't stop you. I guess you can keep going.
I can't finish it now.
Okay.
That's objective B.
I mean, but the number of people it would have to go through for somebody to make an executive decision and say this needs to
Right.
It's terrifying, right?
I mean, even in, what was it? We were talking about Day After Tomorrow and the ships that they had in order to escape, and the bureaucracy required to even get on one of those ships. It just shows.
It's probably a realistic depiction, like,
absolutely.
They captured something.
So you asked me who I'm going to call. Hopefully I have enough pull to get somebody to let me on one of those ships.
Just get the family on there.
I need 4 or 5 seats.
Cuddle puppy. The movie would have been a lot shorter if 007 did that. No twist at the end of that one.
That's funny because I played this game for so long that I had never watched this actual GoldenEye.
Yeah.
I had never watched it at all. All I did was play the game. So I learned the game. I learned the movie
from the game. Yeah. And I just never got into 007 or Bond movies. It seems like a movie time capsule before our.
Yeah, I don't mind them.
Yeah.
I guess I'm really. It's hard for me to say. It's hard. It was hard as a point in the early 2000s with keeping up with what Bond, who is what Bond.
Yeah.
They jumped around quite a bit
fair.
there. Oh, that's right. He's over here. There we go. But yeah, I actually prefer Mission Impossible movies.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe it's just because it's been very consistent.
Yeah.
And Tom Cruise is a staple in that.
No,
And Tom Cruise has a monopoly on action. I saw Top Gun the other day in IMAX. Because it's at the center downtown right now. This is the last week it was in IMAX, and I figured it's probably my last chance.
Yeah, the planetarium's playing it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's my last chance to see it in IMAX, and I had to jump on that opportunity.
It's worth it. Everything I've seen, it's just
yeah,
amazing.
It's good.
I mean, sure, it's like, Air Force propaganda, but
well, absolutely. And the first one was similar.
No, their enrollment went up huge after that. Like, everyone wanted to be a pilot. Little did they know that's like the top 0.005%.
That's right.
Like, yeah.
Your odds of being a pilot
are worse than being a TV meteorologist. Like,
yeah.
Going pro and pilot.
Yeah, you'd probably be better off trying to get into the NBA and being a pilot.
Yeah. That's crazy to see those statistics. Like the drop off from high school to college to pro, and you're losing 99.5% of people on every single step. Like, it's underappreciated.
Why am I still shooting this gun?
Yeah, I was going to say, don't you have another gun?
Oh, somebody behind me? Oh, he was. Oh, don't shoot me, Mr. Chemist.
I'm going to run to the restroom, but I should probably throw you a question before then.
Yeah, that we
Oh, so what is the Earth is flat / anti-vax equivalent in your field? What's the thing that rubs you the wrong way?
Dude, I literally study climate for a living. Yeah, man. It's crazy now in that it's not so much that people deny that climate change is happening. They just try to say, well, there's nothing we can do about it. And that's what's frustrating about it. But so I would say that's probably the equivalent to it. When we look at it, we know that there are things that work on a smaller scale, and there's actually a precedent for people doing global collaboration for this type of thing. If you think back to, and most people will remember when the ozone hole was a huge issue back toward the late 80s when they found out that the ozone hole was really causing a factor in not only increased cancer rates, particularly in places like Australia, but also in general, it's just not good for our planet. Sustainably. The Montreal Protocol was established after scientists discovered that CFCs were the reason for the ozone hole, and all of these countries globally signed off on the Montreal Protocol and finally came to a collaboration and decreased CFCs, and then the ozone hole actually began to reconstitute itself effectively. It began to heal itself. So there's a precedent for there being global collaboration for issues on the environment where everyone was effectively using things like CFCs to profit, but everyone decided that it's not worth the destruction of our planet or the health of our people. The fact that it hasn't happened yet for climate change is somewhat disconcerting, but there are a lot of people now who are still in the process of ensuring that our kids and our kids' kids don't have to deal with this. We already know that these things are happening right now, so it's not much of a matter. Now you find a lot of people just sort of have these same climate denier side of things. They start, well, what about this issue? Or there's nothing we can really do about it. And I don't think that that's something that, for the most part, Trevelyan, I know you're lying to me.
I mean, it is crazy. We fixed the ozone hole. We fixed acid rain. Like, we dealt with it. But climate change, you're right. We just ignore it. The only thing I can assume is that it affects enough rich people where it's not worth addressing now. Whereas those were very specific markets and it was addressable. I don't know.
That's right.
There's not a free market solution to climate change.
No, there's I think at the end of the day, like I mentioned earlier, it's going to come down to the value proposition.
Mm-hmm.
How can you convince people
to think past quarterly gains and make decisions long term?
Oh, this is how I gotta do it. That's right. I can't kill him.
I can't kill him.
I can't kill him. That's right.
They took real images of faces and wrapped them on cylinders.
I didn't destroy all the tanks.
Cuddle puppy. But tackling climate change would make rich people slightly less rich.
Yeah. Slightly, and that really burns a lot of them, to be honest. And so you can't approach them from the perspective of it's the right thing to do. You have to show them how they can make money effectively by adopting climate mitigation strategies, which feels sort of dirty to pure climate advocates.
Yeah.
But how do you begin to make headway? Someone told me a long time ago that the sign of a good negotiation is when everyone leaves the room unhappy. And I think that unfortunately that's probably what's going to happen in many regards. But one thing I think at this point is immutable. We're going to have to do things because the evidence is there. The evidence is there, and it's unfortunately more overwhelming than we would like it to be.
And it really is terrifying, though. There's no debate in the scientific communities at all. Every one of our colleagues just agrees with this. And then you go to the general populace, and it's what, 50-50? It's some kind of crazy...
Part of the issue with this is that when the media covers climate change,
both sides, right?
They cover both sides of the argument when, in fact, there is no both sides to it effectively. If 98% of scientists believe that something is happening, do you put 98 of them on and then 2 of the others on? The practice they've normally subscribed to, they've been to put 1 to 1. So then the conversation sounds like, oh, well, maybe this guy's right, or maybe this guy's right. Maybe this lady has a point, and then you sort of get down this rabbit hole of who you prefer. And that is not a useful scenario, because in an environment where everyone politicizes everything, it's just counterproductive. I mean, it's very tough, but at the end of the day, we're not going to stop doing the research. We're not going to stop trying to understand how things work and trying to find solutions.
I mean, it's the both sides thing is infuriating, right? Because you're giving equal time to voices that are not proportional. Have you ever heard of Project Steve? It was evolution. There was this petition by anti-evolution people that's had this list of scientists don't believe evolution is real, and it was like 200 people. And somebody came up with this idea of Project Steve, where they only took scientists with the name Steve and showed there were thousands of scientists the name Steve that said evolution was real. And it was like, sure, 200 scientists sounds like a lot until you put it to the actual proportion of total scientists. Like, if people understood how many, like, you could walk in a room of scientists and it would be 99% climate change is real, it's a problem, let's do something. But no, you give equal time to both sides. It's absolutely insane.
You know, honestly, but one of their main tactics is to sow doubt. And if we look back to the history of all this, we know why. It's profit driven.
Yep.
And we can go all the way back to the 70s when companies like ExxonMobil literally had internal documentation where they understood that carbon dioxide, as a all the fossil fuels, could cause warming or change the Earth's energy balance. They said, well, what we're going to do about this is we're effectively going to sow doubt. Well, the research isn't conclusive, and then when other issues come up, they mitigate those as well, or mitigate their response to them, I should say. Like recycling. I don't know if you remember, the NPR did the huge expose last year about recycling and how the companies that basically had the recycling programs are the energy companies.
Yep.
But we found out that they really just don't recycle almost anything.
Yep.
Particularly the plastics. Paper more so. The plastics, not so much. So yeah, that's a waste of mine.
That's okay. You got 3 left. So there's a really good book called Merchants of Doubt. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but it describes exactly that. It looks historically, and it's usually the same think tanks that get hired to do this process, but it's like the same group that said, smoking doesn't cause cancer. CFCs aren't causing an ozone hole. Like, climate change isn't real. Lead isn't poisoning kids. Like, it's the same people, and what they do, their formula is very straightforward. They basically say, okay, scientists can't be 100% sure about anything, therefore they're not sure at all. And there's no certitude, and they just exploit that and advertise that, and they find, disingenuous scientists who say, I'm sure X, Y, and Z, and they can't be sure of any of it. It's the same formula over and over again.
Yes, over and over again. And unfortunately, there's a lack of science education in America, which causes people to not have critical minds, or they are critical and they do their research. They don't know how to understand what's real and what's not. One of the things that I teach a class called Climate Change and Storms, the geography of climate change and storms. And we effectively go through a variety of different phenomena. We spend basically half the semester talking about climate and what are the underpinnings and the actual factors that make up or constitute our climate. And I tell them, look, most of you are not going to be, these are not meteorology majors, right? These are geography majors, sometimes business majors, environmental society. So odds are they're going to be in someone's boardroom than they are going to be in a room performing some type of intensive research. Some of them are going to graduate school and may end up going in that direction. But I told them at the end of this class, I'm not concerned with you understanding what the tilt of the earth is. I'm more concerned with you being able to know what the fundamentals of science are, and be able to, and if a question comes up or if a topic comes up, you know how and when to sniff BS. And somewhere down the road, it has the opportunity to put you head and shoulders above someone who didn't take the opportunity or wasn't exposed to the information that you're exposed to, and it could make you a lot of money. And I think that is probably attractive to those individuals. Everyone will not be a climate scientist, but you can at least understand what we're dealing with, and you can understand, what's real and what's not, and be able to understand when someone's trying to feed you a line of it, right? So
yeah.
At the end of the day, when they leave that room, they're not going to care about the boiling point of water or how much latent heat it takes to go from a gas to a liquid.
Yeah.
It's not. Yeah, they need something practical, and that's sort of the type of scenarios that I try to put in.
No, that's fun. I try to do the same thing in general chemistry, because all those phenomena, they're in general chemistry, right? Phase changes and latent heat and the thermodynamics of everything, equilibria, ocean acidification. It is all a simple gen chem problem, right? It's just applied on a global level. Obviously, it's more complicated than that, but
Yeah.
I mean, they have the tools to understand it. It's
It's
just
more complicated than that. You think?
maybe
You
a
can't get
little.
down to any nuances. It's just not just.
Well, I do have them read an article, and because there's this offsetting balance, right? So CO2 goes in the water and it makes carbonic acid, right? It reacts with water to do that. But so CO2 in the atmosphere is increasing, that also increases temperature, which decreases solubility of gases. And so there's these two balancing offset cycles that, yeah, more CO2 is going into the water, but also less because of the temperature. And it's a hard problem. Yeah.
Yes, it is. And then when you throw in biology into the equation, they play a role.
Yeah. Science is hard.
Yeah, it is. But it's also pretty fun, man. Like,
Oh yeah, no, it
like when
absolutely is.
something like when you make a discovery or you start down a path that no one else has gone down before, and it really starts to feel rewarding, and you know that it's going to matter.
I mean, so along that lines, so one of the questions, like, what is the next big what's the game-changing discovery in your area? Well, what does somebody figure out that changes the way your entire field thinks about the world?
So there are two answers to that.
Yeah.
You know, like what's
I wish I knew how to do it.
the normal person would say, well, what's the weather going to be in my house on September 14th? Right? You know?
Accurate prediction down to the household.
Right. And that's and
I would love that.
there's another story about that too, and I'll get back to it in a second. But I think the more realistic one is when we understand. I did that one pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's not bad.
When we understand, or I understand how aerosols behave at different compositions with some level of certainty, and are able to incorporate them in our day-to-day models. Where aerosols are important climate-wise, we can understand how they work seasonally and annually, and be able to put those in the models. Where I love that. A lot of kids love. I am kids. It's on my Costco list every time.
Cuddle puppies are perennial troll. It comes up with something. Why kids love the taste of Cinnamon Toast Crunch?
Yeah,
the answer is sugar. There.
Yeah, absolutely. Sugar and cinnamon.
Yes, cinnamon-like flavoring.
56 seconds. I got a cheat code. There we go.
Wow.
Cheat a bit. All right, so I do think that aerosols are going to be very important. But to that part I mentioned before, sort of tongue-in-cheek, facetiously, and I was saying that people want to know what the actual predictability of the weather is, several weeks out for a variety of different reasons, right? People have lives and they have events they want to plan for and things like that. So everyone wants to know.
Outdoor wedding, I get it.
And they want to know exactly what they want to determine this forecast. They don't want to tell me. They don't want to hear it within a 70% chance. And the reason why, so everyone I think has heard of the butterfly before, right? And no one knows. Well, most people don't know where that actually came from. That came from a paper by a guy by the name of Ed Lorenz back in the either late 1960s or early 1970s, in a paper called Non-Periodic Deterministic Flow, where he talked about, because of the chaos in the atmosphere, chaos being the butterfly, we cannot predict the weather, not climate, weather, beyond 2 weeks within any reasonable level of accuracy.
Oh, he proposed a physical impossibility limit.
Because of the actual, if you think about all the integrations that go into Newton's equations and the constants when you integrate, those constants introduce uncertainty into the model. And that's where, once you get to that period of time, you really start to approach the part where that uncertainty is far too large to have accuracy in the models.
And that's held true? That's
So we've come to the point where we're able to push that. But what you don't sort of see is we can't have the same accuracy, of course, at day 14 as we have at day 1 or day 2. And then what is the actual utility of it beyond day 14? Are we able to basically tell you the weather at your location beyond just, say, the flip of a coin? And that's why whenever you see someone or an organization that might introduce a forecast for 2 months out at a certain time and date, there's no true science to any of that.
Yeah.
Effectively, what they're doing is they're throwing some AI together, probably, and giving you the best statistical probabilities of what might happen in a certain climate and what they think is going to happen. But it's not going to be anything that you can actually take action upon. Now, what's different is that climate is not dependent upon the chaos in the system. Climate is dependent upon the actual energy balance of the Earth system in general. Where weather is much more dependent upon what's happening in the atmosphere in a particular location. So you don't have to worry. So people will say, well, if you can't predict it beyond 2 weeks with weather, how can you tell me what it's going to be in 2030 or in 2050 when it comes to climate models? Those models are different. They use a lot of the same underpinnings and equations, but they use them for different purposes. Again, climate change is really a matter of how much excess energy our system is going to be able to accommodate, and what are going to be the large-scale regional impacts of said energy on our system. What is this for? There we go.
Like I said, that thing had to do something. They wouldn't render that just for art. It had to be useful.
Yeah, so it's a very so you hear that a lot too. It's one of the things that people say, well, how can they know what the weather's going to, they can't even tell us what the weather's going to be.
Yeah. It's a very different scale and different, I mean, so how much better, just like even the local weather, how much better are we predicting things now than we were in 1970?
So
I mean, I don't know how you quantify that.
Yeah. So there's ways that we can quantify it. So if we look at, there's a graphic I actually show in one of my classes where we look at 500 millibar winds. So we look up halfway up in the atmosphere, so approximately maybe 5 miles up. And these are the winds that steer our storm system. So think jet streams, which most people are kind of familiar with. And if we can predict these 500 millibar winds and 500 millibar heights, then we can understand where the main storm systems will go. In 1980, our ability to predict them, 7-day prediction in 1980. Make sure I say this right. Where we were predicting at 5 days in 1980, we can now predict in 8 or 9 days with the same skill level. So our 3 to 5 day, what we're completing 3 days is now our 5 days.
Yeah. So that's not just twice as good. That's like orders of magnitude.
Yeah, it's much better. If you were to look at the first cones that were released for hurricane forecast, which were in the early 2000s, when the cone of uncertainty is what they call it. They're much wider than they are now because our certainty has increased, not only because of our understanding of the phenomena of the people who work with like Alice in Wings, but also because of our modeling capability has increased, and being able to incorporate some of those new research findings and the actual model, the computing power itself. We literally just did not have the compute capability to be able to resolve fine scale things during those periods of time. Think about how large computers were and how slow they were in 1980. Our cell phones, for the most part, are probably more powerful than most mainframe computers during that period of time. I'm not saying that we run our weather models on on those,
but you can. It's not bad.
Probably could. I think I missed an objective here.
Yeah, I just want to point out how terrible ladder climbing was in early gaming. There's no good way to do it. It's just garbage all around.
Oh, I did it.
Tearing through this.
I am shocking myself. Now, granted, I am not on 00 Agent. That's how we used to play it back in the day on 00 Agent. And you get shot 2 times and you're done in that.
I'm impressed just remembering where to go. Aiming, doing well.
I really have no clue where I'm going. I mean, I just want to be honest about it. I mean, completely for the...
To be fair, these games weren't open world. They were fairly linear.
Actually, I'm playing Far Cry right now. If you just said I was going to come in here to play Far Cry, we would have been here all night.
Next time, Far Cry it is. Oh, man. Next time, Fall Guys and Strays. Stray. The cat
I wish I'd
game.
known I just knew we were going to be both playing. I would have suggested Legend of Zelda, man. I ran through that first one. And that was the start of the role-playing, the adventure games.
Yeah.
Man.
So I played the second one first, which everyone hated the second one. I loved the second one because I never played the first one. Yeah.
I had the second one because I had the first one, and I remember I had a neighbor who actually stole my Zelda 2. Because remember, there's a gold case. There's a gold case, and everybody thought it was so incredible.
So cutting edge, yeah.
I forgave him for it a long, but man.
No.
So that was the only one I didn't beat on the Nintendo system.
Oh, really? The second one?
Yeah, I didn't. You know what I didn't like about it? That the swords, when you had full health, didn't shoot all the way across the screen.
Yeah, it was short distance. Yep.
You.
Whoa. Hands up.
Yeah, you almost got it.
First off, good evening. Secondly, you said the winds up near the jet stream are what steer the weather. And before talking about chaos that makes it unpredictable, how much does that chaos really make it up there that high?
Well, the atmosphere is a fluid. So if you can imagine a stream or a creek, right? Most people probably have seen a creek, or don't run from me, Boris.
Huggy Bear, welcome to the stream. Thank you for the question. So how much does that chaos really make it up that high? What high, what are we talking distance-wise?
Well, I mean, if you're talking about 500 millibars, in that case, we're talking about 400 or 500, about 5 miles up in the atmosphere.
Okay.
But the majority of our weather occurs below about 200 millibars. So that may be about 10 miles up in the atmosphere. And to give you an idea of how that really works, where's the actual mainframe? He ran away from me, and now I can't find him. Okay. Oh, here's the mainframe.
Dual wielding. Look at that.
I don't have 28 bullets. So back to your question. I'm not so all right. Oh, shot him in the stomach. Come on, just don't die.
Sorry, Huggy Beer. It's harder than it looks.
Yeah, no, yeah, really it is. Okay, so and he can take unlimited bullets from them, but I can't shoot him. It's crazy. All right, so a lot of the chaos in the atmosphere is just because it's a fluid. So if you think about an average stream in let's say if you were out in a rural area and on a farm or something like that, and there's a stream in the back of the farm, and there are rocks on the bottom of the stream, and you can see sediment being pulled down that stream, right? It doesn't really matter how deep that stream is. It doesn't matter how shallow it is. It always has a reflection at every level of that stream. Well, so while the atmosphere is a fluid, a lot of things that happen at the surface cause energy to be propagated upward in the atmosphere. And that energy manifests itself, heat causes changes in pressure, and differences in pressure are the reason why wind blows at all. If we don't have any change in pressure, then there is no wind. This is where he sets off like the alarm or something like that.
All right, so we have about 4. So NARC, it takes our typical guest 25 to 30 minutes to beat it.
Okay.
I'm going to say you're a gamer. You've done some shooting. I'm going to guess 25 minutes. So maybe we give you 5 more minutes on this and then switch over to NARC. But sorry to interrupt. I mean, the chaos is inherently there.
It is. So these guys are tough. But I forgot where I'm supposed to go now. So the chaos is there, and one of the things that most people find very interesting is that most of the Earth's weather is driven, well, the vast majority of the Earth's weather is driven by the energy we receive from the sun. And that energy, since the atmosphere is relatively thin compared to the Earth's surface, most of that energy is absorbed at the Earth's surface, and the surface then heats the air above it. So if you're outside and it feels exceptionally warm any given day, it's not because the sun itself is heating you, especially if you're not in direct sunlight. The sun is heating the ground, and then the ground itself is warming the air above it. Mm-hmm. And that air, effectively, if you think about pots, when you boil pots of water and you see the actual water, the bubbles come up, the atmosphere is doing something very similar, except you don't see water because the atmosphere is a gas for the most part. So that energy propagates itself up in the atmosphere. You can see it by looking at a thunderstorm in the crisp cloud tops and how they look like they're bubbling. That's literally convection. So you'll find that energy goes all the way to the top of the troposphere for the most part. Basically, the height that most commercial aircraft carriers fly at, I mean, 30, 40,000 feet or so. So yes, so that energy does find its way throughout the entire system, and it finds its way around the world. And the crazy thing about it is that different places receive different amounts of sunlight. Different places have different amounts of water nearby. So you find these differences are what actually cause things to change, and there's those sort of interactions between places.
All right, we should do just one more of these. This one might be, I don't know, too easy. This one's kind of fun.
Okay.
El Nino. Do you remember the Chris Farley skit where he was where he quoted El Nino?
Vaguely. Is that SNL one?
That voice goes through my head every time I see El Nino. All right, we're gonna throw another prediction up there. If you guys aren't following, click the follow button, get your standard internet units. It'll allow you to gamble points that are useless outside this channel, but fun nonetheless. You get bragging rights if you win the question. Instead of gaming questions, we typically do science questions. So we're going to throw one of those up there right now. El Nino equals more Atlantic hurricanes. Is that true or is that false? What is the impact of El Nino? It's like an annual. It's not annual. How often is El Nino? It
usually occurs every about 3 to 7 years.
3 to 7 years. Does it result in more Atlantic hurricanes when El Nino occurs?
This is actually kind of related to what we were just mentioning with the in that, you know, how this guy named Sir Gilbert Walker. He's a sir. He must own land in Ireland, but he's a Sir Gilbert Walker, and he noticed in the early 19th century. Early 20th century, excuse me, that the pressure in Darwin, Australia was oscillated with the pressure in Tahiti. So you notice that they kind of went back and forth, and as they sort of went back and forth, he termed this for the Darwin oscillation. And Sir Gilbert Walker also noticed that there was a circulation in the atmosphere that was resulting from these differences in pressure, again, because differences in pressure cause wind. And he coined it because if you discover something, you name it after yourself. He named it the Walker circulation. This Walker circulation later on became pretty much of a foundational element of El Nino. And it was one of the first bits of evidence that weather in one place could affect weather somewhere else globally without necessarily being right next to it. And imagine that thought. Early 20th century, right?
That's like,
and I'm pretty sure people thought he was absolutely nuts. Just like probably they thought Edison was nuts when he said, "I want to talk to someone who's not even here." You know,
it's all the great breakthroughs, right? And then Darwin and. All right, you guys have about 15 seconds. El Nino equals more Atlantic hurricanes. True or false? Put your predictions in there right now. Bet accordingly. Are you ready for NARC?
I am.
We're closing the night on a game you have never played before.
Oh, this will be good.
But you're familiar with Nintendo. You just beat some Contra.
Okay.
So you have infinite lives, infinite bullets, infinite ammo. Before you start, El Nino equals more Atlantic hurricanes. True or false?
Wait. Okay, I'm gonna laugh at this game. They made an entire game of like narcotics unit. Just say no.
Oh yes. Incredible. We're gonna dive deep.
Oh my God. Equals more. Dream of Nancy Reagan in my dreams.
More Atlantic hurricanes. True or false?
The answer to that is false. They actually diminish the Atlantic hurricanes.
So there's El Nino, there's La Nina.
La Nina. So El Nino causes an incredible amount of warmer water off the coast of South America, so in the Eastern Pacific. So because you have more warmer water, that means you have warmer air above it, causing that rising air. What happens with rising air, especially if it happens over a large region, it can only rise so far and it hits a very stable layer we call the tropopause. And as it hits the tropopause, it only has one option. It has to spread out sideways. And as it spreads out sideways, it has to find somewhere else to sink. Well, what's right next to the Eastern Pacific Ocean? The Atlantic Basin. So that sinking air actually suppresses convection. So it suppresses hurricane activity over the Atlantic Basin. La Nina is actually the opposite of El Nino. So it has cooler water. So you have sinking air there, causes increased hurricane activity in the Atlantic because of the excess rising air that then feeds into that basin.
That's intense.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome once it clicks and you understand how it works. You really get an appreciation
Yeah.
for how
It's energy analysis. It's something I hadn't thought of. That's I'm sorry, Cuddle Puppy. They did the cynical vote of 2% true versus 98% false. It would have been a 47 to 1% payout if it was 2%. I'd be curious if you put La Nina there, would people have gotten that right? You never know who the audience is here.
you know, and that's one of the things when you're making exams. You know, like what are the trick questions? You know, like people
And
thought about
how hard are they? Yep. All right. So this is NARC.
Okay.
Just say no. Win the war on drugs. Designed by Nancy
and then it involves
Reagan.
guns.
No. So you have 2 buttons to do 4 controls. This was originally an arcade game. I don't know if you're familiar with, like, this is what you'd find in Pizza Hut way back in the,
So
the late 80s. So if you hold B, it's duck. If you tap B, it's jump. So it's like a 6-frame tap jumps.
Okay.
If you tap A, it's rockets. If you hold A, it's bullets.
Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah, no, this was pre-Mortal Kombat. Set off all the parents as like blood and violence and blowing up people. But the goal in this game is essentially just walk right and find a door. So you have
it's like turtles.
Yeah, there's no incentive in killing guys. There's nothing stopping you. You just go right.
Any incentive in picking up the money that they
No,
drop?
nothing. You have infinite lives, infinite ammos. You are just walking right as fast as you can. And heads up, every guest plays this, and we have a time for every guest. So you are on the run clock right now. So this timer right here tells you how long. So see the door right there?
Okay.
No pressure. So Huggy Bear wants to know, okay, so on any day the sun bakes us at the same temp, so that's constant. But clouds are a variable, the current ground and air temps are variable, so, and I'm sure this is far more basic than what they do. They plug those functions in to predict what will happen next for weather. Also, thinking of air as a fluid is hurting my brain.
Yeah. It's kind of, but you think like any liquid or gas is a fluid. It's kind of weird,
So
right?
you need that, yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
Oh, there's a dog on me. I gotta take the dog.
You squat,
I gotta
hold
squat and
both
shoot the
buttons, yep.
Oh, okay, 8 better dog.
Or you can just run. It doesn't matter. No advantage of killing anything.
Wait, it turns it into a puppy if I shoot it? Oh, it runs away.
Yes, it turns it into a puppy. And this is quality entertainment. That's why we chose this game at the end of the day.
World.
I mean, so the sun is not constant, right? Sun
No,
bakes
so yeah,
us at a temperature.
so yeah, I think they said at the very beginning, they said that sun bakes at the same temperature where, well, what happens is that because the earth is round,
So you have that card. See, just like Bond. Key card and door.
because the earth is round, places near the equator are more perpendicular to the sun's direct rays. So imagine if you're shining a flashlight on the wall, right? If you shine the flashlight directly on the wall and not at an angle, it'd be a more concentrated beam of light. But if you actually tilted the actual flashlight sideways, it'll cover a larger area, but it will not be intensive light. The same thing happens with the sun's energy in that, okay.
Yeah, just keep going
With a
right.
rocket?
Just keep going right. So just keep going. I'll tell you the one level you have to go left. Oh, he sniped you.
Yeah, so the sun's rays actually spread out more the further away from the equator you are. So imagine in places like Alaska, where this time of year they're receiving 24 hours of daylight. Even though they're receiving 24 hours of daylight, the sunlight is so spread out over the same area of land compared to tropical areas that they don't heat up as fast. So they're receiving less energy. So they're still in the energy deficit compared to other places. So yeah, so all those things are considered in our models and how much energy is located, and it changes by the time of the year. Of course, summer season is the time of the year.
So if you didn't
Do I
notice,
have the card? Do I have the card?
you have to shoot the guys wearing black with bullets, but at a reason. There you go,
There it
blue
is.
card. Fun backstory: those guys are chemists that shoot heroin needles at you.
Okay. They're Walter White. Gotcha.
Okay, so the sun energy hitting an area on the same day of the year is constant.
Make sure I understand that. So
Sun
sun's
energy.
energy. So yeah, okay, on the same latitude. is constant. So if I'm at 30 degrees north and another place is at 30 degrees north, that day we're receiving the exact same amount of sun's energy, assuming no cloud cover, right? Assuming nothing to block out or any excess energy from the sun. Now, certain things can change that as well, that they also incorporate, like what if the area that the sun's energy is hitting is covered with water? Or what if it's covered with ice? Can I hop in this car?
Yes, you can.
How do I do that? Oh, yeah.
But you're going to run into a wall. I apologize. It was glorious while it lasted. That happens to everyone. You have to memorize a pattern.
Yeah, you have to know.
Yep.
Okay.
Just like any Nintendo game.
I don't waste my bullets. Yeah, so if that area is covered with water, or if it's covered with forest, or bare cropland, or snowfall, that means that the sun's energy is not absorbed the same, or some of it's reflected back out into space at different rates. So all those areas, we have to account for that as well, because it can impact. I see, jump is this. Oh, there we go. So yeah, we have to account for all of those things. And you can probably tell from this conversation, that means that we have to put a lot of these things in our model systems. And there's an expert at every different component of those that's working on those problems. There's a graphic that I show in my class that basically is a mountain, and it shows a nearby ocean and lakes and cities and things like that. And I show my students how every single part of that map plays in a component in our global energy budget. And there's an expert who's dedicating their entire career to understanding just their component of it a little bit better, to help us better understand and better predict weather and climate. So
it's hard.
It is.
But we're
and that's why we don't take it for granted, because how many lives we can save now? Like if you think about
hurricanes,
the number of hurricanes, or the number of people who used to die, and tornadoes, and now some people go from no warning to now we might have 30-minute.
Yeah.
So it's absolutely
and we get spoiled with it too, because like I'm sorry, I should have told you to go along the bottom.
It's okay. I'm not supposed to get any cheats. It's all right.
Yeah.
He's just strutting on down the block, man.
The saunter, the NARC saunter. Oh man.
Yeah. So all that sort of goes in. Okay.
Yeah. So backstory on why we play this game. So this is one I played as a kid, and I was my own guest on this stream at one point, and I played this, and I'm like, I'm going to make every single guest play this. And then it became a speedrun challenge, and for about a year, I was the world record holder in this game at 9 minutes and 7 seconds. Somebody beat me in the speedrun 3 weeks ago. So the new record is 9 minutes and 4 seconds, and I'm second place.
Oh, okay.
But, yeah.
I got to shoot.
Yeah. Cuddle Puppy, I don't know if you saw, but I did a speedrun tutorial on NARC. If anyone wants to run this game in under 9 minutes, I tell you exactly how to do it. But it's not trivial.
Took a lot of bullets to the chest and just kept walking to punch me.
That's Joe Rockhead, yes. He's a PCP addict. There's lore behind the game. Do you remember the NES, the little pamphlets that came with the game that had like instructions? But they also had backstories for the characters. Yep, that's where you learn all those factoids. All right, that one you couldn't avoid. That was.
I got a lot of that. Okay with it.
So let's just say I have something planned. Awesome, Cuddle Puppy. Do it. All right, anyone joining us now? Ask a Scientist Gaming, mediocre gameplay expert science. The guest today is, Clown with a Knife. Dr. Brad Johnson, who is playing NARC and also answering questions about meteorology, and geography, urban climates, how land masses, how cities affect climate, and the impact on all sorts of weather events. He's happy to answer any of those questions while he runs away from Clown with a Knife. Did you think you'd be spending your Wednesday night doing this?
At least he's not asking me to go into a gutter.
That's the last friend. Yeah. Nice reference. I like it. Oh, man. Man, though, when the first one came out, the original with Tim Curry. There you go. Oh, no.
No?
You went up the door again. So after you leave this room, don't press up anymore, and you're going to go left and get the key door.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, the door on the
The door here?
Yep. But once you exit, don't press up anymore. It'll make you go back in. Yep. So then key card right there. But yeah, if you guys have any questions, throw those in chat. We're happy to answer them while we win the war on drugs. I mean,
Yeah, we're fighting a good fight, I guess.
are we? Something like $3 trillion towards a war on drugs that's done nothing. That's a whole nother diatribe.
How much time do you get? Is that Mr. T?
I just went with Rambo on this one. If you're going to go up, this is the only one you're going to go left. I don't know, they changed it up on you. You're going to go left on this level.
Well, the record is safe.
Woo. Oh, there you go, green card. Those are marijuana plants. Actually, what's funny is
Are they?
in the original arcade game, they had like they called it the Quack Lobby, and like they showed marijuana leaves. And when they ported this to NES, they're like, we're not going to mention drugs at all. We're going to call it Quack Lobby, so it's with a W instead of an R. And now it's okay.
Yeah. That fixes things.
Yeah. What's your favorite fact that surprises folks? Kind of a factoid request. What's your mind melter?
Well, my mind melter. Okay, so I guess we've been talking about weather and climate pretty extensively. So there is a city in Maryland, Ellicott City. And I know a lot of people have probably heard about when it comes to, like, we haven't talked about flooding at all or anything like that the entire time, but there's a city named Ellicott City. It's a suburb of Baltimore. And over the last in the span of 2 years, 2016 and 2018, they had two 1,000-year floods. Reason being is that when they built the city, which is, I think is probably back in the 1800s, maybe 1700s, they built it at the bottom of a hill, the confluence of several creeks, right? Which is probably not a great idea, but, you know, hey.
They didn't know.
They didn't know. And with suburban expansion and urban expansion,
So you have the card, you're good.
the suburban areas were basically being built on these hillsides, and they're replacing the actual previous land cover with streets and homes and things of that nature. So they had two storms. One of them was 10 inches of rain in about 3 hours. The other was 8 inches of rain in about 3 or 4 hours. And both of them resulted in a lot of course, rainfall. But then the runoff from it, because they had done so much development. Do I actually have it?
Yep, you have that one.
How do you know you have it?
It's just the ones you picked up earlier.
Oh, okay. So you
Yeah,
keep
it's the same one.
cards.
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, all the water ran down the hillsides from these new subdivisions and accumulated in those small little culverts, and then rushed down into the downtown corridor of Ellicott City. Which you can watch these videos on YouTube. It's on there if you type in Ellicott City floods. And you would see that people posting things while they're at happy hour, then all of a sudden the water is rushing down the street enough to carry cars. And so many people are caught off guard that people are actually in the water as well. So like not even like true essence of flash flood is what you would call this. So two 1,000-year floods. I know most people are probably familiar with 100-year floods and hearing that. And that doesn't mean clearly in this case that these floods that are happening mean, only every 100 years or only one every 1,000 years. I mean, how will we even know if a flood happens once every 1,000 years? All right,
you got to rocket the guy in the wheelchair. That's Mr. Big. That is the drug boss.
Okay.
So tap A. Yep. So when he comes out again.
Okay, gotcha.
And just kill guys in between.
Gotcha. All right, so
sorry.
100-year floods.
Guy.
I gotta get lucky, huh?
Yep.
100-year floods, basically. Oh,
there you go. That's one.
That's
Inchworm. He'll be back.
Okay.
Two more rockets.
They did it in under 9. Or 9 minutes and change. That's impressive. Yeah. So these 100-year floods, They are basically statistics from based off of the information that we have on what type of.
Nice. 2.
And it basically says that there's a 1 in 100 chance that a flood like this will happen in any given year. So that basically means 1% chance. So a 1,000 year flood has a 0.1% chance
Nice.
of happening in any given year. So yes, 0.1% chance in any given year. Ellicott City have it happen twice in a 3-year span.
Crazy.
So now they're actually one city that's actually installed a flood alert system.
I was gonna say, at what point do you move out? Like, does that change the probabilities? Like,
if you're a business owner and you've had to rebuild twice, that might give you a little bit of pause.
Yeah. All right. So this is Mr. Big.
Oh wait. Yeah. Okay.
So my advice to you: go to the top of the screen and run away from him. And what you're gonna have to do is jump and rocket him in the hat. So you have to do a tap, jump, and then a tap rocket. It has to be like timing. So yeah, that was pretty close actually. Yep. So on the downswing, you have to do a rocket to that.
So silly. Why is he Mr. Big, man?
He's shooting tongues at you. This is what the wheelchair guy turned into after you blew him up. You regret that decision.
So I can't just shoot a rocket to his face.
Nope, you got to do it. It's in the air. It has to hit him in the top of the hat.
Can I jump over him?
Yep. So yeah, what I do is run away and then turn back. Man, that city. 1,000-year floods.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So what city should be good for a while?
Yeah,
It's like it won't shoot the rocket by me.
yeah, so it's like a 6-frame tap. It's like you have 100 milliseconds. This is what screws most people on this run. Yeah, it's very close, just a slightly faster tap. And you got to appreciate, like, the arcade had 4 buttons, Nintendo only had 2. This is how they dealt with it. They turned 4 buttons into 2.
Fair enough. I mean, it could have been worse. Could have been Atari.
While Brad's fighting the last boss of NARC. If anyone has any questions, throw them in chat right now. He's not doing anything important. It's fine.
I'm doing terribly on this.
Yeah.
I was doing.
You could run all the way to the right and just give it a like practice, because it's a weird timing. It's like tap B, and when you're at the peak, then tap A.
Okay. I shoot from over here. Will it show me that?
He has to be on the screen.
Okay.
But yeah, so that timing was good. It's like on the way down like that, but just like slightly faster. Yep. No, this isn't right. I know that. I shouldn't make you do this after drinking and talking science all night. But I don't know. It's become a fun tradition. I'll let you know afterwards how your time sits within the board.
Oh man, it's probably at the bottom at this point. I'm doubling you guys' time already. It's okay. I feel pretty confident and pretty happy about the fatalities I struck earlier on Mortal Kombat.
That's true. And you beat Contra. Like, let's count it. Cuddle puppy. Would you rather fight an inchworm in a wheelchair or a giant head that shoots tongues?
That was it.
Yeah, that's
tongues.
Yep. So a little less time on the A button. Yeah, there you go. That was close. Oh, that was close too. I think you got it. Just get away and turn back. Try it a few times.
If he wasn't strutting back and forth,
yeah, sauntering. All right, turn back now. Just practice it. That was pretty good. See, it's the pressure when he's on the screen. It's stressful.
Yeah. Inner sanctum is what they're called. Mr. Big International.
This is the drug kingpin. This is what Nancy Reagan was fighting against for all those years. An inchworm in a wheelchair, or oh, that was close. That was really close.
The tongues, though. That's
So Nintendo game designers, they made choices.
Like, who was in the room that day when that decision was made? We should have him throw tongues.
Yeah, that was perfect right there. That one will do it. As soon as he was on the screen. There you go. All right, rockets to the face now. Don't have to jump anymore.
Oh, okay.
And now he's shooting lasers out of his eyes.
Thank you.
Turn back. Shoot.
I gotta get a little bit lower, far.
So you don't have to jump at all. Just, rocket him. He's going to get closer. Let him get a little bit closer. It has a weird hitbox thing where you can't rocket him too far away or he won't do anything. Now you're onto bullets. And so bullets, you can't shoot from the top of the screen. You have to move down. But thankfully, he doesn't shoot anything at you.
So he just follows
walk away.
Chomp.
Yep. So you can't do it from the top. Yeah, somewhere down. There you got one. So yeah, it's just this. Walk around. In these days, games were made by a single unpaid intern. Yeah.
We were so easily amused when we were kids.
3 days to make the game. That's the ET debacle for Atari. We weren't, that wasn't our time period, but they almost, go. You did it. Holy crap.
Let's go.
Mutilated.
Run, man.
No, it's on. I'll get the timer ready. All right, so you got this door, and then you'll go into civil forfeiture of the level. Oh, man. So you can grab gold, but you're also at a speed run, so...
Okay, yeah. I don't really need gold.
Nope.
Because I'm pretty sure I'm not supposed to be keeping this for myself. I feel like Denzel in Training Day. Go ahead, take it. Just take it. It'd really make the guys feel good if you took it, Jake. Jake!
I've not invoked Training Day during NARC gameplay, but I really need to. I also can't do a Denzel, so I'm not even going to try.
Who can do Denzel?
No, that's a really good point. All right.
Just don't be last. Don't be last.
That's NARC. Oh, you're not even close to last.
Okay.
No,
right.
you're doing... Let me see. So I'll open the Excel file that says NARC guest times. I think you were at 2108 because I hit the timer late. You can put your initials that will be forgotten quickly.
Yes.
39. Brad Johnson, you are at 21. What do we say? We're going to say 08. I'll change that if it's necessary. That puts you at number 5 on the leaderboard.
I'll take it.
Number 5 out of roughly 30 people.
Okay, and you said, I thought you said that number 1 was 9 minutes.
Oh, so that's my world record,
that's
not guest time. So
okay.
Alex Robb did this in 17 minutes and 35 seconds. So that's the fastest a guest has ever played this game.
Okay, that's respectable.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
So, yeah.
Thank you. NARC.
Well, you can watch my speedrun tutorial and learn how to do it in 9 minutes if you so choose. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I think that brings our night to close. 10:57, pretty good timing.
Yeah.
So, cheers, everyone. Thank you for joining us. It's always a pleasure. We have a really fun time doing this. Any parting words for the audience?
No, this was really a lot of fun. I like how, you interact with such a different and diverse audience, who likes a lot of different things. I love gaming. Gaming has been a big part of who I am, but I also love science too. So I don't know if I would actually say if gaming were an option when I was younger to like go into it as a career, if I would have done that. Because I love the weather so much, but I know that if anyone would have tried to cross me in Madden 05, they would have had a very, very tough day ahead of them. But thank you for having me out.
Next time, Madden 05.
And shout out to Sarah Hart for actually recommending and introducing you.
Yeah.
Because without her, then I would not be sitting here right now. So.
No, that goes out to all of you, including you, Brad. If you guys know anyone that wants to do this, it's better than me sending a cold email saying, "Hey, do you want to play video games and talk science?" Because it's a very specific request.
Who are you?
Yeah, exactly. Who is this guy? But Brad, it's been a pleasure. I learned a lot. It's a lot of fun factoids. So, Yeah, in 2 weeks we will have Dr. Wei Yang, who's a biochemist who does molecular mechanics and statistical mechanics. He's basically the guy that does computer simulations describing how proteins behave in solution and how they move in dynamic motion and how they do the catalysis and things that they do. So 2 weeks from now, that'll be August 10th. Join us again for Ask a Scientist Gaming. But until then, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for drinking, hanging out, asking questions. We'll figure out somebody to raid shortly, so stick around. But again, thank you. It's always a pleasure.